Hey guys, welcome to Politically Provoked, an interactive podcast where we host debates, panels, and interviews. If this is your first time joining us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell to keep up to date with all our future debates and panels. We are primarily on YouTube, but you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, BitChute, TikTok, and Instagram. All the information is in the banner below. We also have a link tree you can find in the description, or you can just search Politically Provoked and we should pop right up. We are a neutral ground where people from across the political spectrum can either duke it out in a debate or just have a casual discussion in one of our panels. Either way, we try to represent both left and right-wing views on every episode. So I'm your left-wing host, Brittany, and this is your right-wing host, Todd. How are you?
Doing good, Bray. How are you?
I'm doing good. All right, so we got a good panel for you guys tonight. This is going to be a good one. The main topic is going to be nationalism versus globalism. We are also going to talk about Juneteenth, again, how it's become a national holiday, and we're going to talk about COVID vaccine passports. So let's bring on our guest. Let's bring on the only person that wanted to join me on camera tonight, Finley. How are you? I think you're muted. We're off to a good start as usual. No, can't hear you. Well, okay, so why don't you fix that, and then we'll come to your introduction after. So let's bring on Mouthy Infidel. How are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, so you want to introduce yourself, tell people where you lie on the political spectrum, and where people can find you.
I'm Mouthy Infidel. I would consider myself to be pretty far left. I guess that's about it.
Is that you breathing, Finley?
I hope so.
All right. So, you want to introduce yourself and tell people where you lie on the political spectrum?
I'm Finley. I guess I'm left wing, and yeah, that's basically it.
All right. Next up, we have somebody brand new to Politically Provoked. Finley is our left-wing Canadian. We have a right-wing Canadian tonight. So how are you tonight?
Pretty good.
So you want to introduce yourself and tell people where you lie on the political spectrum?
Sure. So I would describe myself as a right-wing nationalist. I am definitely pretty far to the right. I sometimes describe myself as a libertarian nationalist to differentiate myself from the more authoritarian factions of the nationalist movement.
Okay.
I think it's very possible to maintain a libertarian society with a strong national and cultural identity. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. And next up, we have Mio. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, thanks.
So you want to introduce yourself and tell people where you lie on the political spectrum?
Sure. I'm Mio. I'm a social conservative. I'd call myself a nationalist. And for the purposes of this discussion, I'd say that's all that matters.
All right, great. All right, so let's go for our first topic. We'll talk about the vaccine, the vaccine passports. So California, I just saw an article about how Gavin Newsom is allowing people or businesses to, have people have their vaccine passports. And when this whole no mask thing came on, I was kind of wondering, how would you even know if somebody did get a vaccine? They can't just not wear masks. But apparently this whole vaccine passport is a thing. So I don't know if this is something you guys have any real strong thoughts on, or I know, Mio, you're very against it, right?
Absolutely. Totally categorically against the entire thing.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I think it's a very, very dangerous road to go down. I think it could lead to some sort of dystopian future where if you haven't paid your latest dues to the establishment pharmaceutical companies, then you're not able to get on a bus. You're not able to go basically anywhere or participate in society at all. I think this is very much akin to China's social credit system, except it has nothing to do with the merit of your actions, but just whether you paid the pharmaceutical company for the latest round of vaccines. I think that's one of the most terrifying prospects I've heard of in years.
Wait, paid? Aren't they giving the vaccines
Yeah.
out for free now?
Yeah, these are distributed for free.
Oh, I wouldn't know because I'm unvaccinated till death. So.
Sure. So I mean, maybe
Okay.
don't make claims about like having to
Yeah.
pay.
Oh, okay. So then, even then, it's if you don't go and get your latest round of vaccine, whatever they say
we
is
already
in it.
do
Again,
this,
these
right?
things being
But,
untested
wait.
and these companies not being liable for.
What's the government's plan here? Like to spend millions of dollars injecting people with vaccines for no reason, just like for shits and giggles? Like,
Well,
Like, what's the
without
motivation?
reading into the any individual in government's motivations for doing this, I would say that it's taxpayer money that they're spending, and so they're not really concerned with that they're spending nearly as much.
no, that's not true though, right? Because like when these things are distributed by state governments tend to have pretty tight budgets. So and even if they had infinite money to spend, I don't see why they would just randomly decide to like spend a ton of money to buy a bunch of useless vaccines and jab people with them to like no end at all, right? Like what
Maybe
does the
the
government
people,
gain
maybe
from
the
forcing you to get
policymakers
vaccinated a
don't
bunch of
see them
times?
as useless. Maybe the policymakers don't see them as useless. At the same time, I would still oppose it.
So why
would you
what
oppose it?
reason? Yeah.
Why would I oppose it? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Because it's like medical tyranny, man. It's like China's social credit system,
Wait, you know that we
except
already
without
do this,
merit of your
right? Like,
actions. I
you
just
already
said,
have to get like vaccines and physicals and stuff in order to like go to colleges and play sport. Like this is not
Or like
like
join
a
the
new
military.
thing. Yeah.
My body,
those
my
vaccines.
choice.
First of all, those vaccines are very, very different from
so?
the new
How?
experimental vaccines from companies which have no liability for any side effects which anyone has from it, which we're seeing more and more of now. It seems like every week now you see the side effects are getting worse. There are more and more cases of whatever the problems are. And,
Wait, what are the
there are no
problems?
long-term studies on the effects of these vaccines, unlike the ones which people get.
There are no long-term studies because they just came out 6 months ago.
And
but
that's
they've been
exactly
thoroughly
my
tested
point.
and signed
That's
off on by
do you know
the
the
CDC.
do you know the long-term effects of COVID?
And no one knows. And honestly,
Well,
I
what
would
do you
say
think is what would
I
you
think
think
the
is
vast
worse
I think
right?
the vast majority of
Yeah.
people don't have long-term effects.
of
So
COVID?
it's like the
The
overwhelming.
has
vast
COVID been
majority of people who
around?
get vaccinated don't have long-term effects either, though, right?
we don't know.
Uh,
We don't know that. And
You
so
don't
what
know
I would
for COVID either.
yeah, sure. So what I would say though is that forcing people to inject
Nobody's
something.
forcing. Wait,
Yeah.
where did this come in?
If you have a pass, well, you're forcing someone, or else they can't go to the grocery store. They can't participate in social activities at all in society.
That's the grocery store's choice, though, right? Like if they don't want to let people in who aren't vaccinated, you would be compelling them to let those people in and forcing them to do business with them, right? If a grocery store doesn't want to endanger their employees or their other customers, that's their right.
Don't you think? Don't you think it's a little bit more forceful to make private companies like abide by certain policies and let in certain
Or make people get vaccines, maybe?
Yeah,
well,
I
nobody's
think
making you
if
get
we-
back.
if-
Wait. Can you
Yeah.
can you tell me where the state? Can you tell me where anyone in government said that we're gonna like make it a law?
You
that
just
have to
told
get
Well, okay,
you
so
just
when we're
told me I
talking about
couldn't buy
vaccine
groceries without a
passports-
vaccine.
No,
We're
that's
talking
not the government
that's-
forcing you to do anything.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay, what do you
private
mean by
company.
vaccine
Wait,
passports?
Okay,
really
wait,
quick,
wait.
really
All
quick.
right, so
That's
it's gonna be
private-
a little really quick. It's gonna be a little tricky because so many people are off camera, so it's hard to see who's talking and what. So we're gonna try to have a little bit of flow. Go ahead. I think it was Mouthy talking. I don't know. I can't see which bubbles are going.
So I don't know where like why you would even bring up this idea that a grocery store is forcing you to get a vaccine passport, unless
Literally
like
just said
Walmart.
that about
I
their
did
safety.
not just say that.
Not
I
you,
said that
Finley.
a
Not
private
you,
company,
Finley.
a private
Mhm.
company is saying that if you want to have access to the service that they have decided to provide, you have to abide by certain rules that is set by
You're
that
forcing
company.
me
That's
to
always
get
been
the
case.
vaccine. Thank
Todd,
you.
Todd,
Nobody
Todd.
is forcing you to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
Wait, do you think it's like? Do you think it's like do you think a bowling alley is like forcing you to not shit on the floor
Do you
when you
think
come
I
into
need
their
groceries to
establishment?
live, Mouthy?
Right.
Do you
That's
think I
the
need groceries to live?
that's the point. You're saying I'm not forcing you. You're just not allowed to buy food if you don't get it.
Not
So
allowed to buy food
the
from
first
a
thing is that
certain private
yeah.
company.
Sorry. So the first thing is that this is sort of a false dilemma because you're always going to be able to buy food because almost every single like major grocery market now has delivery services. I literally haven't been to a grocery store in over a year because I can get all of it delivered to my house. Sure.
Which costs extra. So you're saying
absolutely,
that
you're not being starved to death by. Yeah, that's what happens if you don't.
What if you can't afford the delivery fee?
Denies you
what if
service?
you can't afford those? Then you are. Essentially, what you guys are saying. What you guys are saying is that you can't. They're not forcing you to get the vaccine, but you're not able to buy food like everyone else.
No. Exactly. No, that's what we're saying. Yeah. If you go into the grocery store and you lick all the food and they kick you out, you're probably going to have to, pay extra to get food delivered to your house or something. But they have valid grounds to kick you out for. They can deny you access to their business because you're doing things that endanger their other customers and mess with the goods that they have. The same is true of, people who are or are not vaccinated. They have a solid ground to deny you service here. And just because, and if you don't want to play by their rules, they have no reason to give you service.
Okay, so your claim now is that walking around unvaccinated you're equating that with walking around licking all of the food in grocery stores. Is that where we're at now already?
Well, they're both forms of endangering other people in the store, right?
So yes,
and they're both private. And they're
is that what you? Is that just so we're all talking
about
the same
right
thing
to enact in their own establishment?
Just so we're all talking about the same thing. Is that the claim here? That those are basically equated?
So I see what you're trying to do, and what I've engaged in here is sort of a hyperbolic metaphor to endanger to indicate the point, right? So the point here between these two things is that if you are doing a thing that makes it either dangerous to be in a business or damages the business's goods, that business has the right to refuse you service because what you're doing could damage the business and could harm the other customers of that business. You probably run a higher chance of doing that by licking the food than going about unvaccinated, but the reason
the common cold
situations are the same.
Also, really quickly, I just want to say, also, this whole thing is assuming that literally every single grocery store that one has access to is saying that you have to use a vaccine. Yeah. We have no evidence to say that is likely to happen.
That you're so social and you're so socially marginalized that you don't have an extra $10 to pay for your groceries to get delivered to your house, even though you would probably pay the same amount of money in terms of the time you spend shopping and the money that you pay for gas in your car to go there.
I think that demanding that everyone pay delivery fees on top of everything and mocking people who can't afford that is something I did not expect from someone who's economically on the left.
I'm not mocking anybody. What I was saying is that the situation you're indicating is probably not likely to happen, both because the act of going to a grocery store incurs cost in and of itself, and it's going to be very rare that there's going to be a person where paying a couple extra dollars a month for a grocery delivery is going to push them to the margin of society that they start starving to death, even if we assume, like Mouthy said, that every grocery store is denying service, which we have no reason to assume.
I don't know what it's like where you live or what the average income is, but I will tell you that there are vast swaths of the American population who are already budgeting on how much food and what kind of food that they can get, what quality food that they can get.
Sure,
already
go to a grocery store that doesn't require a vaccine passport.
Really quick, Mouthy, I think your volume's really low. I don't know if you can talk closer to the mic.
Yeah, hold on.
And so just to be clear, I want to be sure that we're all talking on the same terms here. What exactly are you advocating for when you say vaccine passports?
If a business wants to deny service to someone on the basis of them being unvaccinated, I think that is valid. If it's in-person business with other customers that or in-person staff that could run the risk of getting sick, spreading COVID.
Okay, so for the record, we are all on the same page that the government being involved in vaccine passports in any way is categorically wrong, right?
Yeah, that probably shouldn't happen, and also it's not happening anywhere, right?
Not probably shouldn't happen. We are all absolutely categorically against it, right?
Sure.
What do you
say, Finn?
Against it?
I'm
I'm
curious
sorry,
what
I'm not
all-
sure, and I'm not sure like in what sense.
You
Like,
would
the
not
government
want that
shouldn't
to
be-
happen. If someone said maybe this would be a good idea, you would say no, that violates the freedom of the American people or the Canadian people.
But I'm not sure what you mean by like government involvement in vaccine passports, because what I assume that you mean that like if the government issues them to you after you get vaccinated.
No. What I mean by that is if the government would deny anyone anything or require vaccine passports for any reason.
Like for
Well,
traveling.
wait, for any
instance.
reason, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to go into like a federal facility or something like that, and the government
Yeah.
wants to say that,
Or like if you're working at like a government hospital or something.
So
Where
wait,
you
so
could, like,
so
get
in
people
order to
sick.
work at a government job, you're okay with the government requiring people to have a vaccine?
Well, if you're working in a hospital where you could get people sick with COVID.
So only government hospitals, that's the only scenario during under which you would find vaccine passports from the government acceptable.
you'd have to like give me like more possible. I mean, it's going to be a case by case basis.
How about-
like?
How about
How are vaccinated people in danger? Like if you're not vaccinated, but almost everybody else is.
What did you
Like,
say?
aren't they like immune? Like if they took the vaccines?
Are you talking about like herd immunity?
Yeah.
I
think-
mean,
no,
if
he's
I'm
talking
not
about,
vaccinated,
Like for example,
I'll hire
if
chances.
I'm not vaccinated and the vast majority of people are, so what danger am I posing on them?
I mean, you're still like, if you're not getting vaccinated, the chance that you're going to have the virus is higher, and thus the chance that you're going to
But you're
spread the virus is
vaccinated.
higher,
Yeah,
Spread
but there's
the virus
also
to them,
which
there's other
decreases the risk.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the chances of you spreading the virus, for example, to someone with like immune deficiencies, which means that they actually can't get vaccinated, are going to be a lot higher.
Okay.
For example.
So my next question is: Are you opposed to grocery stores barring people from entrance if they have the common cold?
No.
Yeah, probably not.
You're not opposed to that? If Walmart wanted to say that no one who has the common cold or sneezes in Walmart is allowed in ever again.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be like a pretty bad decision for them financially.
Now, would
so
it be a bad
yeah.
decision? Is that something that you would say that the American people should be against and we should make policy in order to prevent?
No, I don't think we should be in the business of making policy about what kinds of activities private companies are allowed to allow. In
How
this-
about baking wedding cakes?
Mouthy-based libertarian moment.
How about baking wedding cakes? Do you think that
Do you think that like civil rights law is a little bit different than like a company saying that like you can't be like actively spreading a deadly virus in your shop?
I thought we were all just saying businesses can do whatever they want and block whichever people they like. And
Bro,
This
not
isn't,
that.
no, this isn't true. So back right at the beginning, me and Mouthy specifically delineated that we think this is acceptable because we think that someone being unvaccinated constitutes a risk both to the business, their customers, their staff, and their product. So we think that this is a valid reason to deny someone service, which is why we think it would be okay to deny them service based off of it. We would probably see like someone being gay or someone being trans or black, Muslim, whatever you want to say, as an invalid reason to deny service. Because it doesn't constitute a danger to anybody, right?
So would you say that people who have AIDS and have a cut or something should be disallowed from entrance?
No, I just think they probably shouldn't get blood.
Why
on
not? They can
anything.
get blood on something and that could give AIDS to somebody, right? Could it not?
I mean, yeah,
They
that
should
would be
probably have
bad
a
if it happened.
Band-Aid on?
Yes, it
Yeah.
could. Okay, so that
Well,
would be
I think-
a danger to
I think
somebody.
generally,
So if
I think
a business
generally
wants
if
to
you're
block
if
people
you're
who are more
actively-
likely to have AIDS from entrance into their business, they should be allowed to do that, right?
Well, I think that generally, if you're actively bleeding from a cut, you'll be removed from a grocery store either way. Like this is something that would happen in the status quo. Like if I walked into like Save On Foods, like dripping droplets of blood everywhere, I would probably be asked to leave already. It's unhygienic.
Okay.
Right?
Right. What if you have a disease which can be passed through blood, but
Sure.
I can't necessarily see it cut, but I still sense danger to myself, my employees, or my customers.
No, I don't think that would be a valid reason to stop letting gay people come.
Why
into
not?
your
It's
business. I
it's
know
a
where you're
perceived
going.
danger. It's a perceived danger to myself, my customers, my employees,
Mhm.
right? Okay,
Sure.
so then where's
so-
the
Well, the
How do you square
line
that?
would the line would probably be that we think that this is probably so astronomically unlikely, and the chances of actual harm are so small that it doesn't really make sense. Like, for example, by
Just
this
like
same line of
Corona.
reasoning, you could
So
say
who
that
gets
it
to
doesn't
determine
that
that?
we
You can argue the same for COVID.
Right. Who gets to determine that?
Probably
What's
not.
staying too dangerous? You?
uh,
Anthony Fauci?
in this conversation, probably me. On a wide scale, probably epidemiologists
Okay.
and doctors.
So personally, I don't believe that Finley should have the authority to decide who is safe and who's not to granted or denied entrance into grocery stores.
Good thing I don't.
Okay, do you
then.
think? Wait, really quickly. Do you think
Okay,
that
yeah.
if somebody had Ebola and they walked inside of Walmart and were like throwing up blood on like, do you think that that person should be removed? And if so, why do you think you have the authority to decide which people are too
Yeah.
sick?
What the fuck is wrong with you, you authoritarian?
Well,
Couldn't they just? Go ahead.
not hearing an
I
answer.
would say that right there, yes, it prevents a major health
Why
risk
do you think
and
you
a
have the authority
sanitary
to
risk.
decide that?
Yeah.
Wait, why do you think you have the authority to decide what's a big enough health risk?
Well, honestly,
Personally, I don't think you should have the authority to decide that, but I don't know.
It's pretty messed up, dude.
But
So
yet you're deciding on COVID. Funny.
okay, so
Funny.
all right,
I
so
don't think you got the point of that.
No, I don't think.
well,
you
the
got
idea
point of
the
it.
idea is that
Think
we're
about it
pointing
again.
out the inconsistency. I mean, again,
what
we've gone down
inconsistency?
this because we've gone down this path ever since 2010 or whatever. When we've
Of people
decided
being
that
kicked out of
businesses
grocery
don't have the
stores?
right. People don't have the right to freedom of association, and businesses don't have the right
Do you think
to
it's
not
inconsistent
serve
to say
whoever
that-
they'd like.
I'm sorry. Do
People
you think that it's inconsistent to say that businesses should be able to do some things and not other things?
To do some things and not other things.
Is
I
that
think
the
that maybe
perceived
businesses
inconsistency?
shouldn't be allowed to lock people
Yeah.
in and keep them there for a week.
Wait,
That's
what?
one thing I think
What
businesses
are you
shouldn't be
talking
allowed to
about?
do.
Where did
What
this
kind of a
come
broad
from?
statement is
What
should
are you-
businesses not be allowed to do something?
But the problem is, Mio, that you already agreed with me and Mouthy's point, because you said that if someone has Ebola and they're throwing up everywhere, they should probably be kicked out. So you agree that there's a threshold of credible harm that should be grounds for removing someone from a business. So you don't think that this is somehow a contradictory idea, that you can think some things should be a removable offense and some things shouldn't be a removable offense. You agree with us. We're just arguing over where the line is now.
You know what? Sure, I'll give you that. Even I'll give you that we're arguing over where the line is. There are some. If someone's throwing up with Ebola, Walmart can kick them out of Walmart. Okay.
So we agree that isn't inconsistent with the idea that you can't be like kicked out of a business for like sniffling or something like that, right? Like we agree that we can draw a line
Or
somewhere.
being gay.
Well, why
Or
not?
being gay.
Why not? Why we're
Wait,
arguing over where the line
You just agreed
is.
why not, right?
No,
Yeah.
we're arguing
Sure.
over where the line
can
is. I say
argue
let's
where-
bring the
we can-
line there. Let's
we
bring
can
the line
argue
to
over
total
where-
freedom of association, so that businesses can choose who they want in their businesses or not, all together entirely. And then
Right.
we'll let the free market sort it out. And people who don't want to be forced to be vaccinated in order to buy groceries, they can go to the grocery stores, which will pop up. Which are
that our position?
inevitably, which have
Wait,
don't have those
isn't that
policies.
our
Yeah,
point?
but he's saying that also, like, we repeal civil rights laws so you can be denied service for being gay.
Oh.
It's a reductio
Well, I
ad
mean,
It's
absurdum.
funny how
Yeah,
we throw
sure, but
labels
wait,
on it,
really
civil
quickly,
rights
we
and
need to-
whatnot.
we need to-
What about the civil rights of unvaccinated people?
We need to disaggregate a couple of things. I mean, firstly,
Okay.
you alleged inconsistency again after we'd already explained to you why there was an inconsistency. I'm going to need you before we move on to understand that we can quibble over where the line should be, where the line in terms of a threshold for enough harm to warrant somebody getting kicked out of a store should be. But what you can't say is that setting a certain line about where that threshold should be drawn that allows for certain actions and doesn't allow for other actions is not an inconsistency. Do you understand that concept?
Drawing a line which allows for certain actions and not other actions doesn't entail inconsistency.
So much the same
Well,
way that
it could. It absolutely could, because
How does that? Okay, wait. that's an
because
amazing
what you're
claim.
saying, what you're arguing out of one side of your mouth, you're arguing for freedom of association for these businesses based on perceived danger or issues. And on the other side, you're saying, well, and no, we have a civil rights issue which you're not allowed to talk about.
Well,
right?
in one side of your mouth, you're arguing freedom for these businesses kicking out Ebola victims, but on the other side of your mouth, you're arguing civil rights for people who aren't vaccinated. Aren't we like basically making the same arguments here with the line in a different place?
So I just want to get to some of these little questions as we go, because when we will do Q&A at the end, but I'll pull up some as we go. So Based Homeschool Mom says, how would they enforce vaccine passports without violating HIPAA privacy laws? So I don't know if Mouthy, if you want to answer that.
Good question.
I guess I would assume that, like, I mean, if we're talking about what's being passed in California, it's like you just are allowed to receive a certain thing or like a symbol or something like this, which indicates that or confirms that you've been vaccinated, and private businesses can decide if they choose to that they're going to require that confirmation if you're going to use their services.
Yeah, you'd be like voluntarily disclosing it. You wouldn't be like forced to disclose it, like by under threat of like violence or something.
No, just not
Yeah.
even.
So yeah, again, I would say just the idea of an American needing to violate their own biological integrity in order to take part in any part of society,
We already
in
do
general
that, though.
society.
Do you acknowledge we already do that?
Yeah,
You
Like
have
how?
to get a physical if you want to play a sport. You have to get certain vaccines if you want to go to a lot of colleges. Like,
We're
this already
talking about
happens all the
different
time.
types of vaccines, though. These are
Wait,
untested.
That
Wait,
doesn't
but-
matter, though. That doesn't matter, though. Your original claim was that it's categorically the case that people should never have to alter their biology in order to participate in some parts of society. Then when we showed the inconsistency, you say, oh, well, I make the exception for this one because it's untested. Well, it doesn't matter if it's untested. You made a categorical claim that's contradicted by things we already do, right?
I guess. It could be that. I guess I can see where you're coming from. Okay, that there are vaccines required for sports. If someone gets cut and they get blood on somebody, right? You want to make sure that they have the polio vaccine or something like that.
or like working in any hospital.
So I don't want to spend the entire time on this, because we do have a lot of topics.
I'll tell you, I don't like it. I don't like where it's going at all. It's the thing is that the type of world which you guys are advocating for down the road is a medical dystopia. It's that is where we're headed for. I mean, again, because what you're saying is not some mom and pop shops down the street can require a vaccine and some can't, and then people can just choose and freely associate in their communities. We're talking about mega corporations and huge giant conglomerates like Walmart, who have, especially since all the lockdowns, which they advocated for, which shut down, like, what is it, like 80% of independent restaurants, businesses, like the grocery stores, things like that. The Main Street is basically entirely closed down in every city in the country now. These mega conglomerates are going to be the ones which are requiring people to get vaccine passports. They are, because of their huge supply chains, they are where people can get groceries cheaper, and they also, we all know, have the power in order to undercut, throw out other suppliers to other places. They're lobbying against them, things like that, because it's their direct competition.
Wouldn't this policy be good for those other businesses, though, because they're cutting themselves off from a customer base and creating a niche for like smaller grocery stores to fill by serving people who are unvaccinated?
You could say that, and maybe if these were all starting at zero, that would be how it worked out. But as it stands, these companies have billions, trillions of dollars, and they have the capital in order to withstand some small market cut. And so what we're talking about is
but why would they voluntarily take a market cut for no gain, though? Like, what's the end goal here of cutting yourselves off from a bunch of customers? How does that help a company looking to profit?
why why is
What?
has Disney been taking huge giant losses, you know, ruining things like the Star Wars franchise in order to put in
What?
Well,
their
Disney hasn't been taking huge giant losses. Like all of these movies has grossed like over $1 billion. They've been successes by any sense of the word. And I still don't see I still don't see why, if I'm a guy who's running a company, I would go, okay, I want to make a lot of money for my company. What I'll do is I'll make it so a bunch of customers aren't allowed to come or buy my things anymore. That will get me more money. Like, how does this logic work?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? I was reading.
So if I'm running a company and I want to make more money for my company, why would I stop some customers from coming when customers coming to my business is the thing that makes me money?
Well, again, that's assuming that making money is the only end goal of these businesses.
What
And
other end
again,
goal do they
that's
have?
What?
well, I mean, again, I know that sounds ridiculous,
We have
but there are
elites. We have
right.
elites
We have many
so-
examples of these
Okay,
giant
hold on.
corporations doing things like pushing social agendas, trying to marginalize people who don't agree with them, people who they take issue with, just in order to gain
In order to make more money.
no, in order
to they get
gain
positive social capital, right?
monopolization.
So
In order to gain monopolization, so that in the end, yeah, they can be powerful. It's sort of like the idea of is it called price
Wait.
gouging, or is another where businesses
You're
will
just agreeing
on
with us,
purpose
right?
they will lower their prices in order
No,
to
that's
be
the opposite of
lower
price
than a business.
gouging.
Yeah, right. The opposite. Okay, that's the inverse of price gouging. They lower their profits and they take
So-
losses on purpose so that in the end they can be more profitable. Amazon does this all the time. Okay, they get a company that makes a desk, okay, and they sell that desk on Amazon. They get all the companies that do that. They find out which ones are most profitable using their analytics, and then they sell that same exact desk as Amazon Basics at a loss of price. Well, why would they want to lose money, Finn? Why would Amazon sell something so that they lose money? Because in the end, they're going to be more powerful. They're going to drive out their competition.
So the reason that Amazon would lose money is because they're driving competition out of business. But like we said earlier, this would actually be helping the competition because it would be creating a niche for them to fill where all of the customers would be able to move.
Amazon has driven thousands of businesses out of business.
No, you're not getting what I'm saying. So
Okay.
if Walmart cuts off, let's say, like 5% of their consumer base, because that 5% isn't willing to get vaccinated, that 5% will now go to smaller businesses that otherwise wouldn't have gotten that business. So this is helpful for smaller business, and it's helpful to Walmart's competition. It doesn't hurt them, right?
I disagree. I don't think that's
How?
what'll happen.
On what grounds? On what grounds do you disagree, though?
I think that
Where's the error in my reasoning?
Well, first of all, what I would say is I think that this is one small step in a much larger agenda, especially if we start
What
looking
agenda?
at
Yeah.
well the World Economic Forum's Great Reset that all the world's billionaires are talking about right now.
I'm sorry, wait.
Absolutely.
Do you know what does Great Reset mean to you?
The Great Reset, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's what's in their commercial.
What?
That's in the,
It's
the
in
World
the
Economic
commercial.
They have a
Forum.
commercial
Okay,
for
yeah,
it?
actually,
Yeah,
I would like
absolutely.
every single person in the audience really should Google this because this is a commercial that the World Economic Forum put out. They're saying you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. You'll live in a pod and you'll be happy. You'll eat bugs and you'll be happy. And,
They said those.
and
Wait,
you
they
will
said
rent.
those. Did they say those exact words
They
in the
said
commercial?
those exact words
They
in
said
the commercial. Yes,
you'll
I
live
was
in a
blown
pod
away.
and you'll be happy.
I swear that's what they said. They think that renting pods is the way that people will be living in the future. In fact, you're seeing more and more. I saw something on Bloomberg just the other day. The argument for why everyone is going to be happier and better off just renting and not own anything from now on. This is what's happened right now is in 2020 was the greatest wealth transfer in the history of human civilization. Okay, Now who did the wealth transfer to? It transferred to these billionaires, trillionaires, the world elites. These people have wrath of God money. Okay, they have the most that power that anyone has ever had in the history of the world. And what they're saying that they want to do.
on that one.
So just I googled really quickly, and this "you'll own nothing and you'll be happy" is from a video where they talked about how like car shares and like bike shares and rideshare services have made it so like people won't like own things, they'll just rent them. Like the full quote is, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. What you want you'll rent and it'll be delivered by drone." So this isn't talking about like converting
And
the
you don't
world
see
into
a
like a
problem with
socialist
that?
hellscape.
You don't see
What's
a
the
problem with
problem
removing
with that?
private ownership from the people who own things right now. People that own bikes and are happy. They say, "This is my bike and I have it."
But they're
This is my
not. They're
house
not.
and I have it.
They're not voluntary. They're not removing it. This is like a video where they're predicting. It's 8 predictions about the world in 2030.
That's from
So
the
why
World
are they calling
Economic
it
Forum
the Great
itself.
Reset?
That's
Did
no,
World
from the.
Economic Forum say that they're going to forcibly take people's bicycles?
So
What do you think that these trillionaires are trying to do?
Take
What do you
people's
think they're trying to
bicycles?
do? You
They're
can't-
trying to
you
take
can't-
people's
you
everything.
can't
Yes,
just-
they
you
want
can't
to
just give
own.
me a conspiracy theory about how the fuck.
It's
how
not a
fucking
conspiracy
powers
theory.
don't
It's a
steal
conspiracy. These
bicycles
people are
and then
conspiring
say,
for
"Oh,
more
can you
power.
give like a counter theory?"
There's a
Like,
reason why they
Really
call it
quick.
the Great Reset.
Really quick. So I think we'll just do like have everybody go around, just say one final thought on this, and then we'll move on to the next topic. All right, so Mouthy, why don't you just go
Yeah,
first?
I mean, I don't have much to say. I guess like I wasn't aware that Jeff Bezos had a conspiracy to like fucking steal my bicycle or some shit. That's pretty alarming, I guess. But I'm glad I learned about it here.
Yeah, I think this is insane. This is from a video called 8 Predictions About 2030. They're not saying this is a program they're going to put into action. They're saying this is something that's going to happen after current market trends. But I guess like in a year, maybe I'll be like out in the street practicing kickflips on my skateboard, and like Jeff Bezos will walk up to me and like steal it from me at gunpoint. And then
Also-
I'll stare up into the sky and realize Mio was right all along.
Really quickly, can I just comment? There are already countries like Denmark and the Nordic countries. There are all kinds of countries where things like car ownership and things like this are heavily taxed so that people rely more on public transport. Are these countries like dystopian hellscapes? Like, this is just such a ridiculous like narrative about the future. Like, I don't even know how to engage. It's just conspiracy.
All right, Alt, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was gonna say earlier that if COVID is so dangerous, so why are the red states like Texas, Oklahoma, we're not seeing a surge in cases?
They already killed all
Even-
the boomers, I would assume.
Even though like we don't they don't have restrictions, and so what's going on there?
Okay.
Are you asking or
yeah.
is it rhetorical?
Sure.
Sure. I don't know anything about data between different United States. All I know is data suggests generally that lockdowns are good. They stop people from dying. For example, if you look at Sweden next to other Nordic countries like Norway and Denmark, Sweden's death rate is higher, and more important, or not more importantly, but like more surprisingly, rather, Sweden's economic economic damage rather that it sustained was also higher. So I think that lockdowns generally seem to be like good policy.
That's debatable.
Okay.
On what?
Yeah. So for my closing statement, the most important thing, which is driving my ideas on this, I understand that I'm not making the strongest argument that there is against vaccine passports. However, this is why I am so opposed to it without any of that. The reason is because I know for a fact that these people, this is not conspiracy theory. If anyone right now Googles World Economic Forum Great Reset, it's on their website. They say there is an urgent need for global stakeholders to cooperate in simultaneously managing the direct consequences of the COVID-19 crisis. They are saying,
do you know what do you know what stakeholders means?
Stakeholders in the companies or corporations, or what?
Do you know? Okay, so do you know what people?
Oh wait, is this closing statements or?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, go on. Finish your closing statement, Mio.
Okay, I would say that the number one thing driving my opinion on all of this is I have seen a great deal of articles. I've seen a great deal of information on the World Economics Forum's website. This is one of the mouthpieces for the most powerful people in the entire world who own and who have enough money to influence our politicians, to influence any democracy and get whatever policies they want passed. I would say, and this is a part of why I'm so opposed to special interest in government. The Great Reset, they're saying that and they're making it about climate change as well. They're saying that we've reduced carbon emissions because of the lockdowns this year by 19% or whatever, and that because of climate change, we need to keep it here or make it better from this for lives.
So if we're is it okay if I?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we're gonna move on to the next topic.
Is it okay if I just ask a question super quick, just because I want to make sure? So do you know what a stakeholder economy is, or like what stakeholder capitalism is?
I didn't interrupt either of your closing statements, even though I really wanted to.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. You keep going. I thought you were finished.
While I was still talking. Oh, he did disconnect.
Oh, you cut out. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's all right. So yeah, these sorry, my train of thought keeps getting thrown off. But the point is, anybody go to the World Economic Forum's website. They're saying to improve the state of the world, that they want to change the way that things are done from now on forever. They want to make sure that you don't own anything, that if you want to do something, you have to rent it. If you want to ride a bike or ride in a car, if you want to go to the grocery store, you have to ask them for permission. And then after this is all done, they're going to say that because they're private companies or whatever, they're going to disallow certain people from participating entirely. And so what this is going to, if you want to rent a bike, sorry, too bad. You're conservative, and we don't rent bikes to bigots. Okay, this is exactly their plan. They are saying it. I highly encourage anyone to look into it. And if anybody thinks that this is a conspiracy theory, if anybody doesn't understand that the most powerful people in the world, who are billionaires and trillionaires, are conspiring together for even more money and power, then you're not going to make it. And I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So just super quickly again. I don't know why you're
How many closing
repeating.
statements do you get now?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm raring to go, dude. I'm loving this debate way too much.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
I really love that. If you really think it's a conspiracy theory to say that people are conspiring, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
So are you denying that real conspiracies exist? I mean, again, the Pentagon has already put out articles. I saw in the New York Post, the Pentagon has put in tracking chips for the vaccines that track your blood and location. This is in the New York Post. This is not a conspiracy theory. Here, I'll send you the link right now.
All right. Wait, where are you sending it?
I'll send it in the private chat, and they could drop it in the public chat if they want.
Okay, so wait. I've got this New York Post article right here. Medical researchers at the Pentagon have created a microsensor implant that may eventually detect COVID-19 when it's under the skin. Relax, conspiracy theorists. They're not being disseminated via vaccines.
Oh, good. So I mean, again, I don't know. You could make the argument as just as well as you could make an argument that someone can be disallowed from entering into all the main parts of society because they don't have a vaccine because it could be dangerous. You can make the exact same argument that people who don't have the microchip, which tracks their blood to know if they're sick or not, makes them dangerous. And you can keep going with this until, you know, it's way past the point of dystopia. And the point is that even people like me who don't know all the studies, people like me who aren't spending all day reading up on this stuff, have to draw the line right now and say, no, this is too far. We want our freedom. We're Americans. If I, get sick, if something happens to me because I'm free, I would rather live like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I think we'll move on to. We spent a lot of time on that one. Okay, so I don't really want to have a whole conversation on healthcare necessarily. I just kind of wanted to get because we have, and actually it was one of the questions that we got from somebody in the audience, and I think a lot of people might be interested on that, because we have two Canadians here, one from the left and one from the right, and they obviously have single payer healthcare. So I think we know where Finley stands. I was kind of asking Alt and Phobia before the panel started about it. I questioned him, and maybe you can just repeat what you said to me, but because you said that it was like mediocre, right? Your healthcare. But then you said, I asked if you would trade our healthcare for yours.
I said no.
Yeah. So have you had to use the healthcare much?
Have I used the
Yeah,
healthcare much?
in Canada.
Yeah, I've had an appendicitis a few years ago,
And
the wait time was like 9 hours or something. Like that's the biggest complaint. A lot,
Okay.
like the wait time in some cities, especially in Montreal, could be
Okay.
very long.
I
Yeah, we
think
get that here,
I
too.
think I'm never going to disagree that Montreal is a terrible place to live, but
Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on healthcare, to be honest. I do want to get into some of our other topics. I think we should just jump into the main topic, which is nationalism and globalism. I know this was a topic that you are actually kind of passionate about. So I don't know if you wanted to get us started on.
Yeah,
that.
sure. So first, I want to establish what globalism is and what it means for nationalists. Globalism is not solely an economic system. It's unquestionably also an ideology. It presents itself as sort of a modern universalist left-wing ideology.
Mhm.
In order to achieve certain outcomes in society, the globalists are attempting to reshape society culturally, demographically, socially, and politically. And the way by which they're attempting this, to achieve this, is by dismantling thousand-year-old structures, traditional values, Christian European culture, via social engineering. In other words, deeming anything that stands in their way as evil, racist, sexist, etc. Essentially demonizing the opposition, which is nationalism. But globalism and its ideals are fundamentally incompatible with human nature. And according to the observable trends, we can conclude that globalism will ultimately fail, like the previous empires, like the multicultural empires, and experiments like Marxism, communism.
Mhm.
That's it.
Do we all define a global? I mean, I think one thing that I've noticed is everybody seems to have different definitions on what globalism
Yeah,
is.
that's true.
So I don't know. How do the liberals define globalism? Go to Finley and then Mouthy.
okay, and I'm sure you remember this after last night, Brittany, but
Yeah, you actually wanted the clarification. Yeah.
I don't know to the extent that I asked Mio ahead of the time what he thought it meant, because I didn't know what I should even be Googling in the first place, and I'm
Right.
still not sure. I assume that it means like the practice of opening up free trade and immigration between countries, and also I guess when rich people don't like it when you're racist. That's sort of the vibe that I get. But frankly, if you asked me to explain it, I would not be able to tell you.
What about you, Mouthy?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I'm just going to define globalism as like, I guess, generally like global integration, both on a sort of foreign policy level with creating sort of international institutions and structures, things like the UN, for example, and coupled that with like, I guess, things like looser immigration policy between countries, more economic integration, more sort of free trade, these kinds of things. all of which I think are generally pretty good ideas. I guess I'm expecting for this conversation, and I guess what we heard in the opening statement was sort of a lot of appeals to sort of some sort of conspiracy theory where there's some, I guess, a vacuous they who are trying to bring about this global order through subversive methods, but I'm not sure if any evidence can be provided of any such conspiracy. If anyone has some evidence that there is that there was any immigration policies or something like this which were passed subversively and against the will of the people, I'm open to hearing it, but I've yet to be persuaded. And I guess we've also heard a lot of appeals to sort of like, we shouldn't move away from this thing because we've had it for a long time, which I guess I'm not really sure how convincing I find that argument. If things like immigration and free trade and things like this are demonstrably good for the country, then I don't see why we would shy away from it because we've had something else in the past.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've heard so far is exactly what I was expecting. It's anyone who opposes globalism is someone who's opposed to freedom, who doesn't like brown people, who's racist, who doesn't like it when rich people don't like it when you're racist, and that we shouldn't change it because we've had it for a long time. This is I don't know if I could give you a better example of a straw man caricature of the nationalist position, which is held by professors, which is held by some of the highest intellectuals in our society. And the fact that these people are coming this unprepared for a discussion about it, either that or that they are intentionally categorizing us this horribly, is exactly what I was expecting from this debate. Now, on top of that, we hear the word conspiracy theory constantly thrown around when this Mouthy guy is obviously ignorant to the fact that people do conspire. People work together for their goals. People who share the same goals work together. Okay, so if there is a theory about people,
evidence that there is some subversive plan to increase immigration, which was enacted against the will of the people.
Subversive in what way?
In the sense that like it went against the will of the people, and it was like formulated by corporate elites in a way that like if people knew about it, they would have been opposed to it.
Which people? It's because you're saying it goes with the will of the people. Well, I would say that most of the people in the world would be more than happy with globalism because then that benefits them because at the expense of the American people, right? So is it the historic American people that are against it, or is it other people that you're concerned with?
This is actually interesting because this is actually something I wanted to talk about because this is something I've always wondered because it seems like coming at it from the perspective of an American nationalist, America has sort of made out like bandits in terms of globalism. I mean, America basically has the UN bent over a barrel. It sits on the Security Council and has a veto vote. It funds half of it in the first place.
UN only exists because of America, dude. Before America, whoever it is, tried a dozen different things
to create the League of Nations, which America headed under Woodrow Wilson.
There were many. Woodrow Wilson, absolutely. Woodrow Wilson, the guy who signed the Federal Reserve Act and who signed the Income Tax Act, both in the middle of the night, 2 days before Christmas.
What does the Federal Reserve have to do with globalism?
2 days before Christmas?
Wait, can you?
2 days before Christmas, the night before Christmas Eve, in the middle of the night, around midnight. Yes, so after a third of Congress had gone home, that's when the Federal Reserve Act and the Income Tax Act were both passed.
Can you explain?
And you think there's nothing subversive about that?
Income taxes.
Wait. Before
subversive. Why? What is the date at which an act is passed?
And there's one other thing.
Because it's after most of Congress went home, man.
Before this,
when people are not paying attention to politics,
the president also has executive power, right? He can't pass anything that doesn't have like congressional legislative power.
Congress and the president passed it both in the middle of the night. Look into it. 1913
Federal
Reserve Act.
So Congress did vote on it and they approved it.
I'm telling you, a large portion of Congress had gone home for Christmas. The American people weren't paying attention to politics because of Christmas. If you don't understand how this affects things and you think it's all just arbitrary dates I'm bringing up, I can't help you. Now, if we're talking about subversive conspiracies, How about if I showed you a New York Times article entitled "We Can Replace Them"? Is that something you'd be interested in, or would you not consider that subversive or a
First,
conspiracy?
People
First,
saying
wait,
we can
wait,
replace
I don't
motions
I don't
understand.
know. I don't know why a New York Times article would be evidence of some governmental conspiracy unless it was like written by Obama or some shit like this. Also, we have no
so
idea.
you weren't talking about the government.
Also, we have no idea what you think that like a New York Times writer writing op-eds is a conspiracy theory that's like subversively passing policy against the will of the people. Also, really,
no,
like,
that
really
is
quickly,
to
people,
show again
I'm
that
really
a lot of these
curious
people
what your
aren't going to wear on their
justification is.
sleeve that the
I'm really
idea of
quick to-
subversion
I'm really-
is
wait,
they don't
and-
openly
Alright,
say it.
I'm really
and-
curious
wait,
to know
and-
what your justification is for this claim that if the government passes a law and people aren't paying enough attention to it, that's therefore like subversive or something like this. I mean, can you provide me some polling
Yeah,
data or
because
something
the
like this
idea is
people
that they're
were
speaking
against the
something
Federal Reserve
through
being
which
passed?
is against the will of the
So
American
we live
people,
in a
and if they were
representative
paying
democracy.
attention, that
Wait,
they
we
would
live
be
in a
opposed to it.
representative- We live in a representative democracy. We elect officials.
You're asking a
who
lot of
pass
questions
laws.
and not giving me time to answer, man.
What question did I ask you?
How is it subversive? In what way is it subversive? How is an article
You can-
an
yeah, I was in the
example
middle
of
of-
what
I
the
was-
government
yeah.
is doing? How is the New
Yeah.
York Times have anything
And-
to do with it?
and
These
just-
are a lot of questions, and
just-
I've been given
two
what
of those
5
were the
seconds
same
to
answer.
answer all of them.
Hold on.
And-
So let's give Mew a minute to say what he's going to say, and then we'll go back to Mouthy. Go ahead, Mew.
Yeah, I would say that the New York Times is considered one of the most trusted news institutions in America. It's something that a great deal of people read and get their opinions from. And there are dozens of articles like this. There are dozens of policymakers who agree with this. There are people who ideologically share this exact same opinion. Now, who they're saying that they can replace is white nationalists. Okay. Now, are you opposed to replacing white nationalists? Yes or no?
What does that even mean? What do you mean by replacing?
Wait, so
The
just-
same thing Michelle Goldberg
so-
meant when she wrote the article.
So
You
just
seem familiar with it.
just for some context, the article "We Can Replace Them" is about how the momentum behind Stacey Abrams' campaign in Georgia proves that Democratic candidates can win against Republicans in elections in a sustained manner.
And the way that they're saying that they can beat them in elections is the same way that they changed California, and the same way that they're changing Virginia as well. There are many articles, and they've written in the LA Times and otherwise
I just
about
control
this,
F
that the reason
California.
why
It doesn't show up in the article.
yeah, not in that article. I'm sort of connecting two different things here.
Wait,
There's an LA here. I'll send you the LA Times article.
They're achieving this through demographic change.
They're achieving it through
because they're fast.
demographic change. That is exactly how they plan to win elections, is through demographic change. Now, am I not able to talk here? Here, I'll tell you what. You guys have your own panel, and I'll just be silent the whole time. Is that what you want here?
Okay, you guys. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me tell you. It is really hard because everybody is not on camera, so it's also it's making it a lot trickier than normal. So let's just try to have a little bit of flow better. So yeah, go ahead, Mio, finish what you're gonna say, and then we'll go back to Mouthy, and let's just try to limit the interruptions, you guys.
Okay, I just sent the article in the private chat if you want to put it in the public chat too. This is LA Times. California's changing demographics will further doom Republicans. This is the exact same sentiment from the "We Can Replace Them: A Rebuke to White Nationalism" article.
Finley,
It is
not the same.
Finley,
Are What are we doing here, Finn?
You know what? You go ahead. It's just activating my almonds way too much.
I'll tell you what. If you want, I can start jumping in when you guys are talking the same way, and we can make this all a bunch of fun. I just don't think that'll be as good of a flow for the audience.
Okay, so who just left? Oh, Mouthy. Okay, all right, he'll be back. All right, go ahead, Mio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, let him finish what he's gonna say. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
California's changing demographics are what led to the state which Reagan won 6 times and Nixon won 5 times, maybe vice versa, turning completely solidly blue forever. From now on, forever. For the rest of our entire lives. The same thing has now happened in Virginia. Demographic change is changing the voting. This is changing the social agendas, the economic policies, everything. They are literally replacing the voter base and getting their policies put across.
Okay, so
Okay.
go ahead, Finley.
So just one super quick thing. Funnily enough, Texas, Arkansas, all of these places used to be 100% locks for Democrats. They used to call them the solid South. But for centuries, or not centuries, but for like for like half a century rather, these places have been a 100% lock for Republicans. So these sort of changes happen a lot, right? There are changes in the voting patterns of states, and I don't think this is actually a funny thing, because this is something that a lot of left-wing people have had to grapple with. I don't think that these demographics spell the same level of doom as you would think for Republicans. This isn't a 100% sure thing. So one of the best examples is the fact that the Hispanic population moved several points towards Trump over the course of the 2020 election. If you had looked at all of these demographics in 2000, when Florida almost went or did go to Al Gore, depending on who you listen to, you would have assumed that this would be a solid blue state literally for the rest of time. But these demographic changes often don't really bear out in reality. The 2020 election provides pretty significant evidence that there's a lot of potential for Republican persuasion of voters of Hispanic and Black origin. Now, if they probably stopped being so racist all the time, they would probably stand a higher chance of persuading them. But
there it is. It's all about it. Just the Republicans are racist. The GOP's racist. That's all it is. You're not appealing to them because you're not appealing to the foreigners coming in, the other populations who are not
So I understand that you want to latch onto one thing that I
racist,
said,
right?
to get really triggered. But the
there's
larger point that I'm making
is
the larger point I'm making. The larger point I'm making, right, is that the simple immigration of these people doesn't spell complete doom for Republicans, because we've seen Republicans persuade them to vote for Republicans. I mean, 75% of U.S. immigrants are Christian. Like, I don't see this massive apocalyptic fire and brimstone future
Christian,
for Republicans, because Republicans are gaining ground in these demographics actively.
When we talk about gaining ground, yeah, go ahead.
What matters is the macro effect of demographic change. Like if you look at the numbers, it's been very consistent. It's been very consistent for decades. Like there's small changes here and there, like a few percentage.
That's right.
What have been consistent? Like
the voting trends.
The voting trends, yeah. So with Hispanic voters, they vote, all of them except for Cubans, which you guys love to bring up, first generation Cubans only, vote in the vast majority for Democrats, and it seems to be increasingly so over generations, even going like 4 generations down. Okay, yeah. Now on top of that, now bringing in many more immigrants, the faster than they would switch to possibly voting Republican, is exactly their plan. And now you just said, I this is something, of course, I wanted to jump in and interrupt you, but I didn't. You just said that demographic change does not spell doom for Republicans. Well, I'll tell you that the LA Times, the New York Times, everyone disagrees with you. Everyone is saying that demographic change, this is literally the title of an LA Times article, California's changing demographics will further doom Republicans. So I don't know how you square that.
I had no idea I would ever meet a right-winger who thinks that everything the New York Times says is gospel, and they don't get things wrong sometimes. But you know what? Crazy stuff happens all the time. I can't believe you're believing the biased left-wing media, dude.
This is not about me believing the media. This is about me knowing the voting statistics. And when we were talking about subversion, this is proof that they know that this is happening and this is what they want to happen.
Wait,
okay? They're saying that we can replace them and we can win the voting, and we can, just like we won California permanently forever, we can replace them now too. All of these demographics which are immigrating in are voting in the vast majority for Democrats. You can say, well, they won 3 points this one election, but it doesn't matter, especially when put up against the amount of immigrants being put in. You know for a fact, as well as I do, that Democrats are going to be winning elections basically forever for the rest of our lives over this.
This is the only group that
really
reliably
quickly,
votes
can I interject
Republican
really
are white
quickly?
people.
So
Go ahead, Mouthy.
firstly, like this thing that you mention about we can replace them. I don't know why you keep bringing this up. Nowhere in that article did they say anything about demographic change. This had nothing to do with demographic change. Second of all, like, this is what I mean when I said, like, you invoke these broad conspiracy theories about how there are these subversive plans to subvert, like, the will of the American people and destroy democracy. And then your evidence for it is that, like, one person in the LA Times wrote an opinion piece analyzing, like predicting future elections. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. And, like, you claim that the claims made in that article about demographic change dooming Republicans is somehow evidence of a subversive plot. But again, like, you're conflating the idea that someone can recognize that there is demographic change that's currently benefiting Democrats with the idea that this demographic change is, like, happening because of some subversive plan. Right?
So you would, I mean, again, you're throwing subversive plan in there, but let's just call it a plan, okay? Let's say that you're in charge of the Democratic Party. You're a Democratic think tank. You're running one, okay? And you recognize that immigrants overwhelmingly vote Democrat. What's your plan to win?
So
bring
again,
in as many immigrants as possible, obviously, right?
Again,
on top of that, well, hold on. You guys got to take turns, okay? Okay. So, and from this article, which you just said, demographic change and all of that has nothing to do with this, we can replace them thing. This is in, like, what, the 6th paragraph of the article. Right now, America is tearing itself apart as an embittered white conservative minority clings to power, terrified at being swamped by a new multiracial polyglot majority. The divide feels especially stark in Georgia, where the midterm election is a battle between the Trumpist reaction and the multicultural America, whose emergence the right is trying at all costs to forestall, like it's inevitable, right? So multiculturalism being the good guys, multiracialism being the good guys, pushing as much immigration as possible, being written as the people who are in the right, and the bitter conservative Trump minority who's trying to stop progress. It's you see this rhetoric everywhere. It's in all the TV shows. It's in all the articles. It's exactly the rhetoric that people like. The Democrat politicians are using, and as soon as this whole subversive plot narrative fails for you, you're going to resort to calling us racist, just like all the rest of them do.
But again, this doesn't demonstrate a subversive plot. When you said that they're trying to forestall the emergence of something, that implies that they believe it's just a natural process. And that it's not being directly executed by Michelle Goldberg.
You believe it's inevitable, which would exactly be what I would do if I were making a subversive plot.
So
I would say this is inevitable.
So does, like, Michelle Goldberg, like, get to go to, like, the Democratic, like, Satanist immigration meetings? Like, is she in on the plot?
Calling a Jewish person a Satanist is kind of an anti-Semitic trope, Finn.
So you're avoiding the question because it makes you uncomfortable. Is she in on the plot? Like, does she know that this is a plot? Because you just said she's trying to make me think it's not happening.
So it's funny that you say this, because one of our favorite interviews that we love to bring up is what is his name? Stephen. I'll find it. He's a former writer for the Jerusalem Times. Now he writes for one of these American outlets.
So you're avoiding the question again.
Well,
right?
no, I'm pulling up an example to demonstrate
an example of someone else.
An example of a Jewish guy who is saying that the reason why pushing multiculturalism and mass immigration is good for the Jewish population in America is because they are a minority here, and the more minorities there are, the fewer of a supermajority white people are in America, the better it is for them as Jews. Okay.
So yet again,
So-
he's describing a natural process. He's not saying that this is something that he's
What I'm-
actively
Wait,
engaged
really
in
quickly.
doing.
What
Before
I'm
we
describing,
like,
real
move
quick,
on
just
to
so
a
we're all clear, what I'm describing is that people who are minorities in America are advocating for minorities in America. Okay, that's what's happening. And this is not, it doesn't have to be some sort of subversive, doesn't have to be some sort of Satanist plot, anything like that. It's people advocating for their own ethnic groups. And that's what's happening everywhere. And the more that we have this sort of tribalism from the people who are coming into America, and the more of them that we bring, the worse this type of rhetoric is going to get.
The
sorry,
bottom
so what are
line
you
is that
alleging
you can't replace a population and not change a country culturally, socially, economically, and politically. If attempted, you'll get a reaction from
They
the native
want the
population.
thing is they want to do that, and they call it progress. And they
Who's
say
they?
that anyone who is
Who's
opposed
they?
to that is
We're gonna
opposed to progress.
we're gonna need to know who they is, because the
You
problem is
and
wait,
Finley,
really quickly,
you and Finley are doing
just
that, and
me
you would call it progress.
Okay, so the problem is that you're alleging all of these things. Like, there are plots within the DNC to like there are plots within the DNC to like.
How do you
change
think they want? Do you not think they want to win elections?
Matthew,
go.
You're alleging that there are these like subversive plots within the DNC to like intentionally change demographics for the benefit of the Democratic Party. And then when we asked you for evidence that, you've given us like a couple op-eds from some writers that nobody's ever heard of. And then you listed like me and Finley, like we're in charge of the DNC. Like, I don't understand like how you're like justifying this.
Okay.
Mouthy, how do you find out? Did you tell him?
Again, avoiding the entire subversive plot. I swear it's. I'm gonna go back and clip the dozens of times which you've said this, which is something which I never said.
Well, you said that the DNC is working to change demographics. That is by definition a subversive conspiracy theory that you've not provided any evidence for.
Subversive conspiracy.
Because they want votes. They
so
simply want
real quick.
votes.
They want votes. It's that simple. They want to win elections, and they know that that'll get them the numbers to do it. Now, I don't know how you can watch. I did watch the DNC. I watched the primaries. I watched every single candidate get up there and say that open borders is what we need, that stopping illegal immigration on top of mass legal immigration is racist. I watched every single person say that on the stage, along with every other American person. Now, this is the mainstream Democrat position. This is every single Democratic primary presidential candidate does this. Every single senatorial candidate, every single congressional candidate does this. They all say that demographic change is progress, that bringing in more immigrants is a good thing, and that's how they're going to win. And they're saying that anyone who opposes that is racist. And to call this a subversive plot, I have no idea how you could possibly square that that's not what they would want, because that would give them numbers of the votes.
Okay,
why would they not do that? Why would they not do that if they want to win? If you're a pragmatist and you know that you'll get the votes if you bring in more immigrants, why would you not bring in more immigrants? Why not? Tell me.
So the problem is that we're asking you for evidence of like a very specific claim that you're making. And
no. The subversive plot is your claim. The entire time you made up subversive plot. I never said.
I'm gonna need a minute.
Go ahead, Mouthy.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're asking you for evidence of a very specific claim that you're making, and then when asked to provide evidence, you provide evidence for the claim that the Democratic Party supports immigration. Which, yeah, no shit, we're not arguing against that. We're gonna need evidence that the Democratic Party is somehow like trying to get immigration policy passed to like weed out all of the white people in America or something like this, or like make white people the minority because like they want to like win forever or something like this.
No, I never said that. That's your claim, not mine.
Okay, so is your claim just that the Democratic Party supports immigration? Because if that's your claim, I don't know what we've been arguing about.
Yes, that's exactly the claim. And remember, so to get back to the subject at hand here, the subject of the entire discussion, what we're talking about is nationalism versus globalism. Right, exactly. And so when we're talking about nationalism versus globalism, I don't know how you tried to derail this conversation so hard into subversive plots and conspiracy theories, but we're just simply talking about demographic change and the fact that the Democrats are pushing it because it will get them the votes simply, and they don't care about the cultural or social effects or otherwise that it has on America.
You haven't provided evidence for that. You keep saying that, and then we ask you to provide evidence
that they're advocating for immigration.
You just said there's no plot for the Democrats to advocate for immigration. All we're saying is that the Democrats are plotting together to advocate for immigration.
I don't know why we keep coming back to this subversive plot.
Because you just brought it up.
I can't tell if you're trolling me right now because you literally just did what I said you were doing. You said something like, okay, so the Democratic Party is purely advocating for immigration so that they can change demographics because it'll benefit them electorally. And then when I said, okay, can you give me some evidence for that? And you said, oh, evidence that they...
I mean, it's kind of self-evident.
Right. So you're saying that they're advocating for immigration. You absolutely concede that. So why? Because it's racist not to?
Because it's popular electorally?
It turns out that it's not with the historic American people, and which by Mouthy's definition would make it subversive, wouldn't it?
Okay. So
interesting.
Okay, so the way that generally Democratic Party policy works is it's largely a shibboleth of a lot of the things that a bunch of like white young middle-aged college grads think are good, and a lot of things that tend to pull well combined together. There's not usually a lot of like combined, organized, like top-down ideas of what policies should be. Like, having worked on campaigns, I wish that we got like such solid marching orders from our federal headquarters. But generally, a lot of this happens because of the realities of the ways that coalitions fit together, along with a lot of the eccentric opinions of a lot of campaign staffers, and the things that people think will feel good or sound good to say on a debate stage in order to make themselves look good to an electorate, right?
Which electorate?
In the same sense that, like, for example, the Republican Party will say a bunch of things that, you know, aren't necessarily super popular, but have been sort of slowly imported into Republican Party orthodoxy through a bunch of different processes of like sort of idiosyncratic, random, interlocking layers of choices that people make at different stages in the electoral process.
Again, my question still stands unanswered, which is, you both openly, freely admit that the Democratic Party, their mainstream position from every candidate for every type of office that there is to push for more immigration. Open borders, actually, is the current position. Open borders entirely. No stopping anyone from crossing arbitrary lines which humans made up. Right?
Well, I don't think that's so. The probably not true, but
why is that? You can go back and watch the primary DNC debates. I was heavily invested in it because back then I was not sure what I was like about politics, any of it. So I was watching both, and I watched every single one of them say they were absolutely for mass immigration, legally and illegally, and that stopping it would be racist. And they knew it because they wouldn't be able to defend against attacks of racism from anyone else on the stage. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that's what's happening now, is if you're opposed to this globalist immigration policy, which undoubtedly benefits the Democratic Party exclusively, then you're racist, or it's a subversive plot, or
but again, it's not
all these buzzwords. I'm sick of these buzzwords. Can we have a conversation?
We talked about earlier that like the Republicans have managed to pretty substantially persuade Hispanic voters. Like there's been a 10%
not
shift.
Substantially. 10% out of what they voted. 80,
so in 2012, the margin was 71% to 29% for Obama versus Romney. In 2016, it went down to 65 versus 45. In this past year, it was 61 to 39. So this is a 10% loss in margin between the election in 2012 to the election in the past year. This is basically millions of voters who are Hispanic being successfully persuaded to vote for the Republican side. I don't see how you could possibly see all of these things and assume it's some sort of statistical, like demographic inevitability that Hispanics will always vote for Democrats when the reality in front of your face is proving this incorrect.
Here's why. The reason is because it does not matter if given enough time, people will vote common sense. Because if you bring in the vast majority, way more than that, of first-generation immigrants vote Democrat, period. And even if over a certain amount of decades, they will start to vote Republican or even out eventually, then if I were a Democratic think tank and I were a pragmatist and I were playing to win, my plan would be bring in immigrants faster than they change their voting.
But this isn't true. Like, do you think that immigration has been ramped up over the past couple of years? Like, do you think it's higher than it was in like 2012 or whenever?
Legal or illegal immigration?
Whatever you want to say. Probably, let's say legal, like the number of people who are being brought into the country. Do you think that's higher than it was in like 2008 or 2012?
Not after President Trump.
Okay. Do you think it is less?
I would assume that in 2012, that the number of legal immigrants would have been greater than in 2008 because that was under Barack Obama.
Yeah. So this actually
maybe not even, because he was a lame duck president for his entire second term.
This actually isn't true, because ever since the proportion of Americans who are foreign born, even though it hasn't reached its historical peak, has been consistently rising over the last 10 years. So the number of people immigrating into the country has steadily increased. But as that number has increased, again, the number of Hispanics voting for Republicans has also increased. So even though there are more first-generation immigrants, there are still more Hispanics voting for Republicans as well. So it's not just a matter of bringing in all of these first-generation immigrants. The first-generation immigrants themselves are also being persuaded. And I think we should probably let Mouthy talk as well.
The analysis is the main problem with the analysis is that you're just assuming that the reason why immigrants would change their vote is because their ideology has somehow shifted over time, but that's not actually the reason. So what many people are surprised to learn is that many immigrants, Hispanics and so on, actually identify as conservatives, but they vote with the Democrats because the Democrats tend to emphasize, or I guess our political sphere in general, tends to emphasize the certain political issues that don't actually force these voters to vote along party lines or along
what issues, like lines. Immigration?
Things
more immigration
well, mostly
from their
economic
countries?
issues, actually.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is economic issues. But what we've seen in 2020
well, then there we have it right there. We have foreigners coming into this country.
All right, go ahead, Mouthy.
Yeah, so the problem is that what we saw in 2020 is that when the salience of those sorts of issues that don't cause those voters to vote along party lines decreases, and the salience of cultural issues such as defund the police increases, then those conservative colored voters tend to vote more with Republicans. So the actual voting patterns of these people depends entirely upon which issues happen to be more salient in a given election cycle, right? So it's not at all obvious that Hispanic voters will always vote against Democrats or something like this. Republicans just need to be smarter.
Yeah, it's sort of the same reason that like you'll see polls where like 50 or 60 or whatever % of Republicans support like higher taxes or like a minimum wage or something like that, but they still keep voting for Republicans. They sacrifice on certain issues because other ones hold higher salience to them and are viewed as more important. And depending on what is highlighted to the electorate and what is sort of like what's going around in the media cycle, people with the exact same ideological convictions will vote for very different parties.
Is it my turn yet, or
go ahead?
Just playing ping pong? Okay. So I would say, but broadly saying economic and social issues, I'm curious exactly which economic issues you're talking about. However, the idea that the American people, the American citizens, should have to kowtow to foreigners' economic or social beliefs in order to retain political sovereignty in their own nation is I categorically reject. I don't think that that's a good thing at all. I don't think that we should have to do this in order to retain political control in our own nation. I think that this entire categorization is just outright ridiculous. That people, again, we have people from other nations coming here, and all of a sudden they get the same vote as people whose families have lived here for generations. And if you can't win them over because for whatever reason, then whatever, it's not your nation anymore. Your policies are done. You don't have a place to go. America is becoming multicultural. That's progress, and you can just get over it, or what, leave, or just die, or what?
Well, so the problem is the Constitution really explicitly laid out a bunch of things, and nowhere was there any restrictions written into the Constitution about whether or not people from other nations can be made into American citizens, right? So if your problem is that political
actually,
parties...
the founding fathers
wait,
first
really quickly, I'm
immigration
going to need
act
you... Wait,
only Western Europeans.
I'm going to need
Go ahead,
okay,
Mouthy.
yeah, so that doesn't contradict anything that I said. What I said is that there are no restrictions in the Constitution for allowing, against allowing like non-white immigrants from other nations to become naturalized citizens and things like this. So the problem is that if you take issue with the fact that political parties in the U.S. have to appeal to U.S. citizens who are legally U.S. citizens, then your issue isn't going to be with the Democratic Party. Your issue is just going to be with how American law works and how the Constitution works.
Yeah.
So if I said we want to bring every citizen over from Russia right now and make them American citizens, you see no problem with that?
That is an entirely different question than what we were just talking about.
Yes or no?
Well,
yeah, I would say that's probably a problem.
Why is that a problem? You're disagreeing with the founding fathers. They didn't say anybody couldn't be citizens.
I didn't say that you couldn't I didn't say that you couldn't oppose like other immigrants coming in or certain like acts that the government does. What I said is that you're trying to act like it's some anti-democratic thing, or it's antithetical to the purpose of America, or the way America was set up, or the purpose for which America was set up, to have immigrants that we have to appeal to in order to win elections. When the naturalization of immigrants into citizens with voting rights who political parties have to appeal to in order to win is entirely justified under the American legal system and under the Constitution.
So I think categorizing the works of the founding fathers of America in such a way that you're essentially saying that their beliefs, what they wanted for America, was for tens of millions of people from other countries to replace their descendants and change the nation fundamentally to the point where they are changing the Constitution.
well,
They want to abolish the Electoral College. They want to get rid of the First and Second Amendment. They want to make it so that there's hate speech laws and gun control laws. They're changing the Constitution.
So-
People who are not
this is-
descended from the founding fathers, and it's the
Where in the
idea that this is what they
Yeah,
would have
like-
wanted, and that
so
I'm
it's-
opposed to
it's-
them. I let you
it's-
talk, didn't I?
Not really.
Okay. All right. So I think go ahead, Mio, and then we'll go back to I think it was Finley that was interrupting. I'm not sure. Losing track. All right. Go ahead, Mio. Finish what you're gonna say, and then.
Yeah, the idea that the founding fathers would have wanted tens of millions of immigrants to replace their descendants and change what they wrote into the Constitution is just absolutely absurd. And I hope anybody listening can hear that.
So this is really interesting because if the founding fathers cared that much about it, it seems like they would have explicitly written it into the Constitution. Instead, Thomas Jefferson, for example, was incredibly open to the idea of stuff like this that they took as as something that's just sort of guaranteed and something that they would want to see in their society changing in the future. When he said, I'm not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, new discoveries are made, new truths are discovered, and manners and opinions change. We might as well require a man to wear a coat which fitted him as a boy in civilized society to remain ever under the regimen of their barbarous ancestors. Now, if we want to talk about the original intent of the founding fathers, funnily enough, I think most of us probably wouldn't be in the United States because most of the founding fathers didn't consider anyone other than Anglo-Saxons to be white. There's an explicit quote from Benjamin Franklin where he says that people who are from Spain, people who are from Germany, people who are from Italy, none of these people are considered white people in his view, and none of them are fit to immigrate into the United States either, which I imagine you would probably disagree with unless you want to go back to like a 100% Anglo-Saxon USA. So if you want to say that we should
to one
ignore...
of the last Anglos in America, just saying. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a
I'm
joke.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you want to go back to the intention of the founding fathers and say we should do what they would have wanted, even if it's not in the Constitution, so obviously they didn't think that this should be something that should be held in the U.S. into perpetuity, we would have to deport like all of the Italian immigrants, all the Irish immigrants, all the Russians, all the Germans, so on and so forth, like that, right?
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. It turns out that all of these people were fairly easily able to assimilate into the American culture. And yes, they absolutely did assimilate. Nowadays, you can't tell hardly the difference between someone from a Nordic country or a German or a French guy from Anglos. And they're especially by everyone coming in from these other countries who are not Western Europeans. They all just call us white people. Like there's no difference at all. Okay, as far as the culture, the neighborhoods goes, at this point, they've absolutely been able to assimilate. Now, to be able to say that there is no greater difference between someone from France and someone from Germany and someone from France and someone from Africa in culture and in a multitude of ways, in language, everything that makes up a nation, it turns out, is absolutely absurd. Now, and on that point, let's discuss what a nation is. Right? What is a nation of people? Because we're talking about the nation here, what the founding fathers wanted. The founding fathers wanted their nation of people to turn out okay in the end. Is that something we could probably agree on? That they wanted their nation of people to turn out okay?
Sure.
Okay, good. Is that a head nod? Okay, good. All right, so they wanted their nation of people to turn out okay. So now let's discuss, what is a nation of people? Is a nation everyone who's in the borders, everyone who has documents and papers? Is a nation just anyone in the world? Well, what is a nation of people? I'm curious from your perspective.
First of all, probably the first thing, but second of all, in terms of like integration or immigrants coming over. Again, as I mentioned earlier, 90% of the immigrants in the United States can speak English in some capacity. There's only like 10% who say that they can't speak English. Outside of that, 75% of them come in and they're Christian. So it seems like a lot of these cultural values they already possess. Now, if you want to talk about linguistic integration, we see that over time, by the time that they've reached the third generation, immigrants, for example, in Hispanic communities, are almost entirely monolinguistically English speakers. Only 4% of them continue to speak Spanish in the home. And in addition, a lot of them end up earning massive amounts of money, significantly more than like the native population when they enter the second generation of immigration, right? Which would prove that they would also integrate economically. So it seems like all of these metrics of integration or cultural similarity you could look at are pretty much solid. Like, a lot of this integration that you would want to see has already been done in the first place, right? And now,
sure,
in terms of the Irish, oh my God, I'm begging you, dude.
Go ahead.
In terms of in terms of Irish and Italian immigrants, these people had massive problems integrating, right? Like there were businesses that would say, we will not serve Irish or Italians. They were ghettoized. They formed crime sects. And arguably, you could say that, Irish and Italian people were more marginalized and less successfully integrated than Hispanic people are today. But it seems like things turned out to be pretty okay in the end. And considering the fact that today we have a lower percentage of the population foreign born than we did at the start of the 19th century, I don't see why today all of these who again
you're cutting out.
Are
Finley, you're cutting out for everybody else.
Yeah.
Grading.
Okay, Finley, you're cutting.
Finley, we missed you.
Italian people didn't.
You're still cutting out, Finley.
Past 20 seconds, bro.
All right, so Finley, we didn't hear any of that.
The past 20 seconds, we didn't.
Yeah,
hear.
So maybe I don't know, Mouthy, if you have anything to say.
Okay. Is it coming through?
It's bad.
Is it coming through now?
No, it's bad. It's really bad. Why not? Maybe sign out and sign back in.
Okay, real quick.
Amazing.
On his Irish point, I want to make this point in front of him, but I'll keep the conversation going.
All right, well, he's back.
Cool. I would ask this question.
Go ahead.
No, sorry.
No, you're cutting out.
Okay, cool.
It's bad.
Oh my god, I hate you guys right now. Okay, try again.
Okay, Finley. So I'm curious on the Irish immigrant issue. I'm curious. Would you say that it is no easier for someone from a first-generation immigrant from Ireland to assimilate into the Anglo-Saxon historic American culture than someone from Africa?
What would make it harder?
Are we pretending like African Americans
the ethnic
one of, like,
identity?
the dominant influence?
Right, the ethnic identity. I'd prefer a simple answer to a simple question. Is it easier or hard?
So like the ethnic identity, like the Irish people who literally had such a strong nationalist ethnic identity and opposition to like Anglo-Saxon dominance that they literally performed terrorist attacks throughout their country to try and fight for their independence.
Just to be clear,
part of the same
just to be clear,
category.
Your idea here is that it is no easier for an Irish, German, or French immigrant to assimilate than an African one.
I haven't said that necessarily. I'm just curious. No, I'm just
American one.
I'm just curious what you think would make it harder.
And I asked first. How about that?
I don't know. Again, I'm giving you an opportunity to educate me. What would make it harder for an immigrant from China or from Latin America to integrate than someone who's from like Europe? What would make it harder?
I would say the level of ethnocentrism, which differs between populations.
Wait.
What I would say,
you have groups coming in that are highly ethnocentric, and they vote in accordance with their race and religion.
Okay,
and that's true. And on top of that, I would say that the Irish, German, or French culture is undeniably closer to the Anglo-Saxon culture than African, Chinese, or Hispanic culture. I would say they are undeniably closer. You can see it in the architecture, in the art, in the religion, in even the languages, and the historic Indo-European roots. You can see it across everything that makes a nation of people.
But we talked about this earlier. Again, 90% of immigrants speak English, 75% are Christian. So all of those things.
So yeah, I wanted to get back to this point which you brought up, which is if that's the case, why did they hold the Democratic primaries in Spanish as well as English? Why would they do that if everyone speaks English and is down with that?
Probably because they're trying.
Probably because there's still 10% who don't speak English.
Okay, so you're saying that there are people coming in here who don't speak English, and that now we're changing our own elections in order to appeal to them, right?
So when I say 90% speak English.
Oh yeah, well, not changing elections, changing the election process.
You know what? No,
process. The language it is spoken in.
I agree with Mio. Just the other day, I was watching a presidential debate and I saw subtitles. And I think it's fucked that we're changing our elections just for
It's not
deaf
subtitles. I'm telling you, the Democratic
election
primary,
process.
you had several candidates make statements exclusively in Spanish that I still today don't know what they said.
Maybe you need the subtitles too then. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
It sure have been good
this
if they
is
had
actually-
subtitles, because we have presidential candidates saying things in languages I don't speak in my own country.
This is
What if
actually
they-
So what I wanted to
that
talk
one
about
time
are-
when Julian Castro said one sentence in Spanish during one debate was like a pretty massive
It wasn't just him.
failure of
There
our
were some that were
democracy.
fumbling. There were people that messed up on their Spanish because they were trying so hard to pander to Hispanic people,
Yeah.
and they were reading pre-written Spanish words, which they don't speak the language either. So no, I'm not just talking about that one guy. I'm talking about all like I forget how many candidates it was, but it was shocking to me.
Do you think that candidates saying like a sentence in Spanish during a debate is like
Why
a
would they do
virtue
that?
signal about how woke
Why would they
are?
do that
you
if
think that that's,
English is
like,
the American
a
language?
Wait, what?
Why would they do that if English is the American language?
Why would they say a
The
proverb
language of the
in Latin?
American nation of people.
Probably
Why are we
because-
changing? Why are we saying
Okay.
multiple languages? And do you think it's going to stop at one sentence, or do you think it's going to get worse?
No,
or
next
better
time it's
in
gonna be
progress?
2 sentences. I agree.
Two
Maybe even
sentences,
3,
and
dude.
what
Shit could
happens-
get crazy.
What happens the next year? It's again.
In 5 decades, people will be saying in like maybe 5 whole minutes of Spanish during a debate. I'm worried.
Truly the downfall of the white race.
So what I wanted to talk about. Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
What I wanted to talk about are the consequences and the effects of demographic change.
Lay them on me.
So,
I'm fascinated.
Okay. So a population voluntarily replacing itself is something unprecedented in human history. It just doesn't happen. And according to studies, you see like that groups remain. Groups differ in group bias, in group preference. I'm sorry, I'm having.
No, that's absolutely true. What he's saying is,
I'm having trouble talking. Sorry.
I can
You're
speak
good.
to a personal anecdote on this, which is that I had a friend I used to talk
The
politics
Heisman
with,
of
a
everything.
Hispanic guy, and we used to disagree on immigration. He thought the wall was racist, and eventually, after a great many talks with him, he finally, told me exactly why that is, why he feels the way that he does, and that's because he said, and I quote, "It's because the people coming across the border are my people."
Yeah.
Wait,
so
wait. So don't you want to like lock down the country to preserve the culture of your people?
That's exactly right.
So I hear a lot of claims about this, about how like different demographics can't coexist because it'll lead to some massive catastrophe in terms of social cohesion. But I've never actually seen any like actual evidence of this.
I mean, we're seeing a reaction, though. Like in Europe, you see a huge reaction.
Sure. So I mean, we can do these kinds of things where we like, I guess, bring up anecdotes or say like, I've observed this and I'm just going to assert that X is the cause. But like when we actually look at studies about these things, I mean, there was like that one guy, Robert Putnam, who tried to do that study where he was trying to showed a negative relationship between diversity and social cohesion, which is like cited by alt-righters all the time. But even in that study, like diversity couldn't explain like more than 1%. Or even 1% of the variance in social trust, like between countries. And then even like a follow-up meta-analysis of like 90 studies trying to replicate that. Found that
Here's a
most
study.
studies
You know who
failed to
doesn't?
replicate any relationship between
Here's
diversity
something.
and social cohesion. Like this just isn't really borne out.
You know who doesn't lie? Businesses to themselves when trying to make money, right? So let's look at the leaked Amazon
Did you just
documents.
say here's a study and then give something that's not a study?
Yeah, I'm sort of.
Okay.
Finley knows how I feel about studies. I'm sort of tongue in cheek.
Oh
with that.
God, yep.
But
I sure do, buddy.
Yeah. So looking at the leaked Amazon documents, you can see that they didn't want everyone to see this, but it turns out as diversity increases, their stores are less likely to unionize. Now, they check all the factors to see what makes a store more or less likely to unionize, because obviously this corporation hates unions, right? It's bad for them. And so have a huge vested interest in this. And they've found that as diversity increases in a store, they are less likely to unionize. Now, why do you think that is? Let's talk about what it takes to make a union. It takes social cohesion, it takes unity, trust, things like that. And it turns out you get less of that as you mix in a bunch of ethnic groups together. Now, on top of that, I'd like to read you a statement. This is a statement about our greatest ally, which I'm curious if you support or are against.
Oh boy.
This is from the Anti-Defamation League.
So before we talk about Israel,
defamation.
can we clear up the social cohesion thing really quickly?
Yeah,
sure.
Because like I don't know. Yeah, so like really quickly, like I gave you like multiple studies, meta-analyses of like 90 studies, explaining that there is really no statistically significant or consistently observable relationship between diversity and lower social cohesion. What you gave me is firstly not even any sort of statistical analysis, but literally just a correlation which was found between higher rates of diversity and lower rates of unionization. I mean, that could be because of a multitude of confounding variables. You would actually need to provide an additional argument or some statistical analysis showing that the cause of that correlation is what you're alleging, because what you've provided doesn't even give an argument to that effect. But even besides that, I'm not even sure. You'd also need to provide an argument that unionization is a sufficient proxy for social cohesion, because that sounds like a bit of a reach when we have much more direct measures of social cohesion, which find the opposite of what you're alleging.
Okay. Well, I guess we can let everyone, the studies being absent and not on screen right now, I guess we can let everyone decide if people who speak different languages, who have different decisions. I let you talk, didn't I?
So the 10% who speak different languages.
All right. Go ahead, Neil.
Okay. So I would say, where was I? That the studies being absent and not on screen, and we can leave it to the people to decide if people who speak different languages, who have different religions, who come from completely different cultural backgrounds with different values, who have different family systems historically, who live in different types of communities, who have all of these major differences, can just have the exact same social cohesion as people who have all of those in common.
So
now,
again,
putting that aside, I'd like to read this statement and see if you agree or disagree. This is a statement from our greatest ally. It says, "It is unrealistic and unacceptable to expect the state of Israel to voluntarily subvert its own sovereign existence and nationalist identity and become a vulnerable minority within what was once its own territory." You agree or disagree with that statement?
I disagree. Yes.
Yeah, we're not
be very
pro-Israel.
surprised to find out that we don't agree with the internal or foreign policy of everything Israel does.
No, I'm just curious. I'm just curious because that's one example that I had on hand of a sovereign nation saying that they don't want. It's unrealistic. It seems like a perfectly reasonable statement to me.
Can say things that I think are wrong. Really quickly, you made this point about how the studies aren't on screen, I guess, to insinuate that I'm I don't know, making this up or something. If you want to look up the studies, you're more than free to. One of them is called E Pluribus Unum, Diversity and Community in the 21st Century. It was by Robert Putnam. It's one of the most widely cited studies on the relationship between diversity and social cohesion. The other was a meta-analysis analyzing 90 studies which attempted to replicate Putnam's findings, which found that most of them failed to do so. It's called Ethnic Diversity and Its Effects on Social Cohesion. It was published in the Annual Review of Sociology in 2014. So if anyone wants to look any of these up, you're more than free to. I promise I'm not fucking.
Oh yeah, sorry. I will just so we're all clear. I did not say that to insinuate that you're making it up, but just because I don't think that us sitting here reading studies together on screen would be good content.
Well, and also just super quick, again, we're talking about people who speak different languages and have different religions. It's 10% and 25% respectively of the 15% of the population that is foreign born that speak other languages and have other religions. Again, 75% are Christian, 90% speak English.
Again, I would say that all of that being aside, that we can see these changes happening. Again, it's not just one example to say that they're now speaking entire sentences and paragraphs in Spanish in a foreign language in our presidential elections. This is everyone right now can think to themselves, and in the past week probably see an example on a billboard and in a TV show in somewhere of seeing a foreign language which they do or do not know, but it's not English. It's increasing and it's everywhere now. Now, on top of that, where was I? Got thrown off by the studies. What were we talking about right before that? The nations subverting their sovereign identities. That's something that I want for our country, and I think every nation of people has a right to, which is to not voluntarily subvert their own existence and become a vulnerable minority within their own country. You know, we're seeing a lot of especially anti-white rhetoric in America, which is dangerous. We're seeing tribalism, increasing tribalism, right? Yeah, see, and that's it's based to you. We're seeing tribalism from all of these other ethnic groups which are coming in, and so it is not unreasonable to see that and to have a reaction and to say, you know what, since they're becoming more tribal against us because of our race, we want fewer of them coming here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening in Europe.
So
right.
I imagine that a lot of this tribalism generally comes from, you know, like stuff like Joe Arpaio or like Trump calling them thieves and racists, all sorts of things like this, right?
He said many, I'm sure, are good people. It's immediately after that.
So if I came on screen and I said whites are white nationalists, terrorists, and scumbags, and many, I'm sure, are good people, would you come away with the idea that I love white people? Oh yeah, he was like some. I'm sure some are good people. Again,
it's funny because that's actually kind of akin to a statement which Trump himself made, which everyone turned against him in exactly the opposite way when he was talking about the Charlottesville rallies, about the statue debates, and the people who showed up to protest the tearing down of historic American statues.
We're changing.
He said there were very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the white nationalists and supremacists who should outright be condemned. He said that. He said there were very fine people on both sides, and that's all that people took from it.
Do you think it's hypocrisy that, like, we are against making generalized negative statements about, like, races of people, but not making generalized negative statements about, like, white nationalists?
It wasn't about races of people. It was about the people which the state and nation state of Mexico is sending.
Are they, and what race are they generally?
Does it matter if he was saying it about Russia or anywhere else? If Russia was not sending their best, if MS-13 was across our border and they were Russians, and he said the Russians are a problem, they're not sending their best. Go ahead.
Well, so again, this is the same sort of like rhetoric that you've condemned earlier. You're saying like when people are saying that white people are like white nationalists and terrorists and stuff like that, that's terrible. Like that's awful. How dare they? But when Trump comes out and says that Mexicans are rapists and murderers, and like some, I mean, I bet some are good people.
He wasn't against legal immigration from Mexico, though.
He wasn't saying that Mexicans are rapists or murderers, anything like that.
Mexico is sending rapists, murderers, and thieves.
Do you think
that when Mexico sends rapists, murderers, and thieves, that these are like expats from Sweden that they're sending?
It doesn't matter because you're taking a statement about the nation state of Mexico and you're making it racial. That's the problem. He said, here's the full quote. Let's read it. He says, when Mexico, the state, sends its people, they're not sending their best, he said. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're sending, the nation state itself is sending not the best from Mexico, which they do have to offer, is what he was saying. They're sending people who have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. True. They're bringing crime. True.
So true.
wait. No, they're not bringing crime.
and some I assume are good people. He's talking about
also
the people
really
which
quickly.
make
I like
Mexico
that.
ascending, not a racial statement at all. And to
I'm glad
categorize
that now.
immigrants
I'm
produce-
glad that.
Okay, wait. All right. So go ahead.
Yeah,
Mouthy,
sorry,
what-
you go ahead, Mouthy.
Yeah, I'm really glad that now you're deciding to make a separation between a race of people and like a nation. When I thought we were arguing earlier that like the race is pretty essential to what makes up a nation of people. Was that not a claim that you made?
I never said the word race in this conversation until you brought it up.
Gotcha. Well, we were talking a lot about demographics. Which ones are we talking about? Like, is Mexico sending too many men, or?
Yeah, I'm talking
Too many
about
old people?
I'm
What are you
talking about
talking about?
ethnic cultures. So,
ethnic cultures.
ethnic cultures, and what a nation is. If you ever took an international relations course or anything like that, that includes language, shared history, culture, religion. It includes the
Like-
values, the family structure, all sorts of these
So you
things.
don't have any
Which
problem
Wait, so
with racial
religion, like the
demographics?
Catholic nation of Mexico, which is
yeah, and
majority
also
Catholic?
language, like the Spanish they speak in Mexico. Exactly. They're not the same as us, and because we have one thing in common, does not make them the same nation as us. Okay, and so that is that categorization is absolutely absurd.
So you're fine with racial demographics changing as long as they speak our language?
I'm fine with racial, as long as they speak our language. I would say that's a debate that we could have as well, because
Okay.
the
Gotcha.
Uh-huh.
the language is not the only thing itself. There
Like,
are
what
there
about
are many
religion?
different. Again, you made the distinction between German race and French race of people, right? And
Who?
so if
What?
German people,
Who made
and
that
French,
distinction?
Mouthy did. And so if you made
When?
earlier on in the conversation, he was talking about how Germans, or actually Finley did too. You were talking about how Germans and Irish and French were all not considered white people by the founding fathers.
I
And
didn't
so-
make that
and
distinction.
so-
Ben Franklin did. I
and
never said
so-
that.
According to that, the point is, if there were German people who were Germans who had the historic ethnic German culture, and they decided to speak French and moved to France and kept every single other part of their German heritage, no, they would not be the same nation of people. And yes, I would be opposed to that. And yes, a huge part of all of their ethnic and cultural differences could be summed up by them being a different race of people, which is just them being from a different place. It's essentially the same thing. We're talking about their
You said
cultural
race had
ethnicity,
nothing
man.
to do with it.
Yeah.
Again, I see what you guys are trying to do here, like trying to trap me into being a racist or something. Well, we're talking about ethnic
You
cultures.
said race was irrelevant earlier.
Ethnic cultures and group
Yeah.
identities.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
cultural.
also want to, just because we didn't get a chance to talk about this earlier, immigrants do not bring crime. Like, immigrants commit crime at a massively lower rate than the native population.
Okay, that's a really
Everyone
funny
who's credible
statistic you
agrees
bring
on
up.
this.
Guess which Americans are committing all the crime? That if you took that one demographic out, all the immigrants would commit far more crime than Americans. Yeah,
Is it
that's right.
Is it a racial group?
It's an ethnic group.
He's talking about black people.
It's a specific
That's
community.
what I'm guessing. Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
would you not? Hold on. Are you denying the black community a right to call themselves the black community, distinct from the rest of Americans?
No,
Would
you're
you
right.
deny
That's
them that?
exactly what we said. Black people
Yeah.
shouldn't be able to call themselves black people.
The leftism
remember
understander has logged on.
I'm talking about the African American community, which is that they hold to themselves that they are a distinct distinct culture from the rest of Americans. Otherwise, they wouldn't make the distinction, right?
Okay.
Yeah?
Wait, where are we going with this?
So the point is, if you removed African Americans exclusively from the statistic which you're citing, then all the rest of Americans commit far less crime
And if
than
we
the
were-
immigrants
if
who
we
are coming
removed-
here into America. So
and if
just
we
because
removed
there is
that,
one
it
group,
would drop even
this
more.
isn't
What is
true,
the
though.
relevance
This isn't
of
true.
this?
just because there is
Hispanics commit less crime than white people.
Hispanics or immigrants.
Hispanic immigrants.
Do you have the statistics on that up? Because I don't think that's right.
I can bring
I don't
you
think it's right either.
literally whatever you want. I will I can go through my research document right now, and I can find it for you. Okay?
I've
Just for
heard this
you.
argument before, but I don't remember the. I don't remember the details of it.
Okay.
I'm also
Let's
curious, like,
start
what
this
the
one out.
relevance is to, like, whether it's black people or white people committing.
Oh,
more
right.
crime.
You're saying they commit less crime. That's because they're a smaller percent of the population, man.
Wait, what?
No,
That's-
no.
we're talking about
per
per
capita
capita crime.
They mean they commit less crime per capita than the native population.
I don't
That's
know
the
about
Hispanic
that.
immigrants.
His claim seems to be like, well, I mean, like, immigrants commit less crime than the general population, and then
Are Asians
well,
included?
if we start taking out certain demographics from the general population, then that's not the case. It's like, I don't really see what the relevance is. That, like, yeah, if we looked at only women, for example, black women and white women, we're going to be committing much less crime than immigrants. But, like, why? I don't know why we would, like, analyze it in that way, or, like, what relevance.
Because
that.
the point is that the society at large, you're categorizing it like the American society at large commits way more crime than the immigrants who are coming here. And so Donald Trump specifically was talking about especially gang members and things like that. He was talking about the people who Mexico is sending who are not their best, the people who are criminals. You know, MS-13 is one of the most inhumane, nasty organizations who has ever existed on planet Earth, okay? And to want to safeguard the border and not be able to describe exactly the horrific ways in which they torture people and to use rhetoric like it's really bad, okay, is not racist, okay? And that's the point. But all of that aside, not getting into studies about crime rates or anything, and just specifically talking about the culture, it's the American culture is changing along with demographic change. And again, the Democrats are pushing it because they want to win elections, and the immigrants, especially from Hispanic countries, are voting Democrat. That's the problem. They're okay with our culture completely and fundamentally changing from its Anglo-Saxon roots so that they can win elections. This is globalism. The idea of, again, it's just like Europe. The European Union has countries who are, you know, smack dab in the middle of it, who are demanding that countries on the outsides are bringing in immigrants. And these countries don't have sovereign control over their own nations anymore because they've given into a globalist government. And that is, and now we're seeing nationalist uprisings in all of these countries because the effects are so bad. Because you can say that all your little studies say that the social cohesion is as fine as ever, but if you look on the news, if you look anywhere around in society, you see ethnic groups fighting within one country now. And it used to be that different ethnic groups were different countries, different nations. But now they're all smashed together in the same nation. And that's globalism for you. And we're seeing the effects of it. And it's getting worse. It's not better. And the unionization is not getting better. The social cohesion is not getting better in
So
any
do you
country.
think that looking at the news might carry with it some sort of, like, selection bias in terms of what results you're getting? Because, I mean, it would seem like if you're looking on the news, the stories you're going to see are the stories which are like.
So you're denying all of it, what I just said
Really
is happening?
quickly,
I
wait,
want
I'm
to be
gonna
I want to
need
be
to-
sure. I
I'm
want
gonna
to be
need
sure. Are
to-
you saying that I'm
Is it
falling
chill
for
if I
news
finish real
propaganda,
quick?
or this is not happening?
Is it
Which
chill
one?
if I finish
Which
real
one is
quick?
it? Are you
Is it
saying this
chill-
is not
wait.
happening?
Is it chill if I finish what I was saying, and then I'll answer whatever question you have?
Sure.
Sure. So, yeah, so, I mean, when we're looking at the news, we're going to be seeing stories that are put on the news because they were, like, something that was important or surprising in some way, such that showing them on the news will get people to tune in. So I wouldn't expect a lot of news stories about different ethnic groups in different cities or towns just, like, living peacefully and being chill with one another. Of course, you're not going to see those news stories. The only news stories about different ethnic groups in certain regions that you're going to see on the news are ones about those ethnic groups having, like, massive tension with one another, which of course can happen. Nobody on this panel has denied that that can happen.
Have you not seen things like the no-go zones in Sweden, where the Muslim immigrants are making it so that towns, so that the mailmen and police won't go to these places because they have, and a different ethnic group has taken over, that they have their own laws and culture and different systems and stuff like you haven't seen this at all?
Which towns? Like, what are they called?
You're denying this exists?
I just want you to name one of the towns.
Sure. One moment. What?
And also the nationalist uprising is
You're
also
asking
Google
for-
time. Let's go.
You're asking for specific names of towns, which we all know exist, and laughing when I look it up for you. Why?
We all know they exist.
Oh, okay. So why does it matter what the name of the town is, Finn?
Wait.
There's a growing reaction, and that matters.
It's because you're trying to
The
pretend it
national is
doesn't exist.
surprising.
That's why you're trying to pretend it doesn't exist, and when you're laughing when I look up the name of the town for you, which we all know exists,
So
you're laughing like that, making it up.
the reason I'm laughing is because you said something that sounded right, and you didn't expect anyone to call you on it. And when you got called on it, you didn't have any evidence for your claim, and you decided to go.
It's because it is right, and Mouthy just admitted it. Do you deny that no-go zones in Sweden exist?
Mouthy sarcastically said, "We all agree with it," to disagree with your assertion that we all agree with.
Okay, so you deny that there are no-go zones in Sweden.
I'm agnostic. You've asserted it.
Yeah. This isn't something that I've looked into.
I'm curious if you so you have you've never heard of this phenomenon before?
No.
Okay, so that is so there are eight real no-go zones in Stockholm, Sweden alone. These are small communities, neighborhoods.
SaveMySweden.com.
Again, it doesn't matter where the article is. You can look at footage of these places. There are journalists who have gone into these places, which are they've been beaten for it on camera. And the people there are shouting things like, "This is our town now. You don't belong here. You need to leave because you're not us." And those are the people who are that historic nation of people. The fact that you guys are ignorant of this and you're still arguing for globalism speaks exactly to my point. Okay.
Well, I mean, if being ignorant made your points wrong, I don't think that you'd have any place being on this panel, right?
Yeah. So the first thing that I found when
it's funny you say that when you've never heard of these no-go zones before.
Yeah, sure. So
would you trust RT as a source?
Can I just read something really quick? Because I just
how about CBS?
Wait,
can
really
we just
quickly.
let Mouthy talk?
Wait, yeah. So really quickly, I just looked this up. One of the most persistent myths about crime in Sweden is that some areas are so dangerous due to outlaw asylum seekers that police can't enter them. But Swedish police were quick to tell us that these so-called no-go zones don't actually exist. The term originated with newspaper columnist Per Gudmundsson, who used it to refer to a police report identifying problem areas in the country where there is a criminal milieu. In these areas, there is high crime, low SES, and lack of social integration and cooperation, which presents a special challenge to police. But Erik Janasker, a police chief in Malmö's southern areas, told us that the term no-go zones never appeared in the report itself, and Gudmundsson admits as much in his column. However, since he used it, the term has taken hold in the popular imagination.
Okay, so here's one from Newsweek, okay? They're saying that the Swedish police have identified specific vulnerable areas, they call them, which the Swedish press, right-wing press, is calling no-go zones. The police have rejected the term, but they are calling them vulnerable areas with the crime. Police believe 5,000 criminals and 200 criminal networks are based across the 61 areas.
Wait, you gotta let him finish.
So no, he doesn't want to let me finish because I'm speaking the truth.
No,
and
absolutely.
That's exactly what his problem is.
I mean,
these areas on Wednesday's list, 23 are considered especially vulnerable, where there is a, quote, widespread disinclination to participate in the judicial process, and, quote, this situation is considered acute. Police believe 5,000 criminals and 200 criminal networks are based across the 61 areas. These exist. These are very real places. And the fact that you're denying this, if I were a Swedish person listening to this spot right now, and it's these places exist, you're denying it. Okay. You're laughing at the idea of it, scoffing at it. It's disgusting behavior, man.
So it's really weird because this article doesn't make a single mention of race. It's saying that there are areas in Sweden in urban communities which have high crime. This exists in all urban communities. Criminologically, they are hotbeds of crime.
Who are not participating in the judicial process, not allowing police to enter? Do you think that's what's happening?
Just super quickly, more to the point, in this article you sent, there's this a quote from the Stockholm police chief who says, "For me, it's more like they're go-go zones. It is where we work." So police are actively in these areas, arresting people and trying to stop crime from occurring. Now, you can appeal to some vague idea that it's not Swedish people, but there's no confirmation in this article, and there's no evidence that you've presented to us that these are zones that are disproportionately being occupied by Muslim immigrants who are specifically trying to push Swedish people out of their society and take over. You have presented us evidence that there are places with high crime in cities which exist in all cities. Sorry, go ahead, Mouthy.
That's the thing. You like massively pivoted away from your original point, because your original point was that there are these areas filled with immigrants where police literally can't go there. And in fact, these immigrants are actively like pushing out the native police, saying that it's their areas now. And then when I bring up this this article, which basically says that no, according to the police on the ground, they actually are very active in these areas, and there are not areas where police can't go or where they're barred from going in. And then you say, oh, they just reject the term, but there are still areas of high crime. Of course, there are urban areas with high crime. Nobody's disputing that. But your claim that police officers can't go in these areas was factually incorrect. And I would just like to, as a check for intellectual honesty, I would like a concession that like this claim that you made was just factually incorrect.
Okay, I would say, you know what, I'll give you, because I don't have a specific example on hand of the Swedish police not going to places, even though I've seen it. And I've seen interviews where Swedish police are saying, we don't go there. Swedish mailmen are saying, we don't go there. Sure, because I don't have it on hand right now, I will concede that point. However, the idea that the Swedish that it's just the historic Swedes who are refusing to participate in the judicious process and making no-go zones, or what go-go zones, whatever you want to call it, these highly vulnerable, acute areas where the crime is so bad. The reason why we don't have racial statistics on this stuff is because Sweden no longer keeps statistics on ethnicity and crime. They stopped doing it. I mean, it's just like the FBI, I'm pretty sure, too. They stopped publishing it, at least. Now, and this is all happening for the same reason. It's happened in the UK as well, where there's, I don't know if you're familiar with the case, but there was here, I'll actually pull this up, because there was a giant case where they found out that there were Muslim rape gangs in the UK who went largely ignored and unreported by the police because they didn't want to appear racist. And that's why this stuff is getting so dangerous. You have examples, real life examples of young British girls who have been raped and really bad stuff, okay? And this stuff is being ignored by the police because they don't want to seem racist. How bad is that? I would much rather be racist than let a little girl be raped.
But these aren't the only two. These aren't the only two options, though, right? Because we can live in a world where we have immigration and we stop. We can live in a world where we have immigration and we stop people who are immigrants from committing crime. The fact that some immigrants commit crime does not mean we have to shut down all of immigration. Just like the same way that the fact that some new births will grow into people who commit crime doesn't mean that we have to sterilize the entirety of society. So once again, you're talking about how you don't have an example of no-go zones on hand. That's not the extent of the problem here. The extent of the problem here is you sent me an article that directly contradicts what you were saying. You were saying that police don't go into these places. The article you sent me has a quote from
Did we not already address that one point and move on? Are you not going to address the point that I've made sense moving on from that? Or are you just going to stick on that one point forever?
I just addressed it.
Okay, well, Mouthy addressed it already, and then I
No. I addressed the other point you made. I said I just addressed the other point.
Okay, what you said is some vague thing about how, well, we don't have to choose between stopping immigrant rape gangs and being racist, but the police in the UK disagree with you, man. So
well, I would say that they're wrong. I'm not the UK Police Department's lawyer. I'm allowed to disagree with them on things.
Okay, and I can explain to you why this is all happening. It's happening because accusations of racism will get anyone fired now. The police don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their careers. And there's exactly, this wouldn't be happening if there weren't racial tensions. And guess what? These racial tensions wouldn't be happening if they weren't bringing in immigrants of other races. And so these are now little girls who are being raped and abused, and it's ignored because they're bringing in immigrants from Muslim countries, man.
Yeah,
I don't understand how you don't see that direct correlation.
the guy who stabbed my uncle in the street and killed him probably wouldn't have done that if we just sterilized everybody the year before he was born. My uncle would still be alive, right?
I don't see how you draw that
preventable.
correlation at all whatsoever, man. I'm
saying if
people have to continue existing, but we don't have to keep bringing in immigrants to our countries.
So really quickly, so I need to ask a question. So I guess your claim is that some massive influx of immigrants in recent years is causing crime to skyrocket. So I'm curious, do you think that crime in Sweden is higher now or in 1990? When do you think it's higher?
Sorry, either you or I broke up just now.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So if the claim is that crime is increasing in Sweden because of some influx in immigration, do you think that crime
I didn't say that
is higher
necessarily.
right now, or do you think it was higher in 1990?
I didn't make that claim
like
at all.
30 years ago. Okay, so you don't think that immigration is increasing crime in Sweden?
I think that all I said is that there are Muslim rape gangs which are being ignored by the police across Europe in several different places because the police don't want to seem racist. Address that point, man.
You said there's a Muslim rape gang.
You were making a claim earlier that there were like these high crime areas in Sweden because of immigration. So I guess, were you not making the claim that immigration was increasing crime rates in Sweden?
Well, no. Just because immigrants are just because immigrants are committing crime does not mean that the general population of crime would be going up or down at all whatsoever. All it means is that these immigrants are committing crime.
I'm talking about overall crime.
And I don't care about overall crime. I'm talking about the crime in which the immigrants are committing.
Sometimes commit crimes.
No, I'm saying that these immigrants are committing crimes so badly that it's creating these acute, highly vulnerable areas which are not participating in the judicious process.
Okay, so your claim is that immigration. I'm so confused right now. So are you or are you not?
You
claiming
clearly
that
are
immigration is
confused right
driving
now.
crime? Because earlier you said that you were not claiming that increased immigration is causing an increase in crime, and now you're saying that like because of
whether the general population is committing more or less crime has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
We're talking about overall crime rates.
You're talking about overall crime rates, and I'm not.
Okay, so immigration is increasing, crime is decreasing.
No. Why do you keep saying that, man? Can you? Is this guy broken? Are you on drugs?
I don't understand.
So what you just said was that
I'm saying no, it has nothing to do with the overall crime rates, and you said okay, so it's the overall crime rates are increasing. No,
that's my claim. So overall crime rates are decreasing compared to what they were like in say 1990, while immigration rates are increasing.
They haven't.
So if you want to claim that somehow
are there any
is a
spikes
problem in Sweden as a product of immigration, which is what you were claiming, then you're going to have to provide some evidence for that claim because it doesn't seem to be true.
Why do I have to provide evidence for your claim? I don't understand.
No. You have to provide evidence for your claim that somehow the reason for these problems that Sweden is experiencing with these high crime areas is a product of immigration, when immigration doesn't actually seem to be increasing crime when we look at the trends over time.
You're talking about overall crime from the general population of Sweden, who are the vast majority of the population.
I don't know how you're not getting this.
Just because immigrants are coming into the country and committing crimes does not mean that the overall crime rates are increasing or decreasing. There's no necessarily correlation.
Okay.
So actually, funnily enough, overall crime rates would be decreasing if we added more immigrants to the population, because as we explained earlier, immigrants commit less crime than the general population.
Yes, but the crime did spike due to immigration, didn't it?
So he doesn't seem to be getting this. So my claim is that if we look at the statistics, immigration has been increasing in Sweden, but crime has been decreasing in Sweden, right? So you're trying to make this argument where you're appealing to some link between Sweden is having these problems with these areas with all this crime because of immigration. But when you look at sort of...
It's not a claim, it's an article in the news, man.
But it's not an article in the news, because the article you linked us didn't mention anything about race.
You know why we don't have anything about race? It's because Sweden stopped tracking racial crime statistics. Why did they do that?
Make an active claim And
Do you
then
not
also the-
understand? Hold on. I let you guys go back and forth with each other for quite a minute now.
It's pretty important.
But here's
you
the
guys go
thing.
back and forth,
You're
playing
trying-
ping pong on the left side
I know
of this
you.
debate
Wait,
for a
I know
long
you
time
really
now.
don't. I know you
Give me
really
a
don't want
second
me
to talk,
because
will we?
you realize what's happening here. But so
I
I just
want
want
to say
everyone to.
something.
I have an answer to your
wait,
question.
Okay.
You really don't want to hear it. I can
No,
tell.
so I just want everyone to appreciate what's happening here.
I want
So you
everyone to
made-
appreciate
so,
what's
okay.
happening here, which is
So,
that
all
these
right, so
statistics
are
are
you
not being
I'm gonna
tracked
need-
for
so,
a
yeah,
reason
all right,
on
yes,
purpose.
I know,
And
I
now
know,
you're
we've
saying
heard you.
because we don't have
Yeah,
these
so
statistics
we've heard you
that
say
we
this,
can't
okay.
prove anything.
Wait,
All
so
right.
yeah, so we've heard you say this. What I need everyone to appreciate is the fact that you made an active claim about the fact that race is the cause of what you're alleging. And you cited an article as evidence of that. And then when Finley points out that actually, no, that article doesn't provide evidence for your claim, you say, oh, well, there's no evidence for my claim because there can't be evidence because they're trying to not
The
track
fact is
crime
that-
statistics.
The
So if
fact
they're
is
not
these are
tracking
immigrant
these
communities.
statistics- Wait,
The fact
so
is
if-
these are
wait, really
immigrant
quickly, so if
communities
they're
doing
not-
this, man.
If they're not tracking these statistics, then why would you make an active empirical claim?
It's because I have
about
seen
the statistics that
documentaries
they're
of
not
journalists who
tracking?
have gone to these places, and it's not Swedish people, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Swedish people who are
So
doing
can
all
you-
the crime,
well,
man.
Okay, well that's great. So can you give me an article from a journalist who somehow provides some evidence that race is the driving factor in these no-go zones that don't actually even exist that you're talking about?
I can try for you.
You can try.
We,
Okay.
Guess
I mean,
what?
we can sit here on Google all day, but I mean,
Well,
you,
no,
it
no, no.
sounds like
So
you guys are
having a-
woefully
so when you make
unprepared
an
for this because you've
empirical-
never heard of
Well,
this
it's
phenomenon
just-
at all.
So when you, well,
It sounds
so
like you're
the funny
woefully.
thing-
It seems like you're woefully unprepared for this because the first source you sent us was a article that contradicts everything about your claim.
This is a phenomenon that has been going on for years, and it's a big part of why there's a nationalist
Well, you haven't
uprising
provided
in
us any
Sweden.
evidence
In
that it's
fact, there are
necessarily
organizations
right?
like the Sons of Odin, which are entirely made up of Swedish people who are now patrolling these areas, which are now deemed as racist because they are specifically making sure that young Swedish girls who are walking home are protected from the Muslim rape gangs who are attacking them. So
There is a crime
again,
increase
this
in
is all
Sweden.
well-known phenomenon for
So-
years by many by all like everybody, and the fact that you don't even know about this
If it's-
and you're advocating for more immigration is shocking.
Well,
if it's so well known to everybody, then it should be pretty easy to source it. Sorry, go ahead, Mouthy.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's
so
basically what I was
the
going to say.
crime
It's like,
rates have
you keep
increased in
just
Sweden.
making these assertions like immigration is causing this problem, immigration is causing this problem. And then when asked to provide
That's-
some evidence, you say, oh, well, the evidence doesn't even exist because they're not tracking crime statistics. Maybe if you know that the evidence
That's not what I'm
doesn't
saying
exist,
at all, man.
then
I'm
you
not
shouldn't be
saying
making
that at all.
claims
I'm
about the
not
evidence.
saying immigration is causing this problem or this problem. I'm saying there
Okay,
are
great. So
communities
why are you
which are
using
made
this
up
as
of
an argument
immigrants,
against
which
immigration?
are. I can't talk over this guy for an entire hour. It's
Sure.
I,
So,
Well, I think we are going to probably like wind this down in a minute, you guys, because we've gone over quite a bit. So,
I
yeah,
wanted to say something.
yeah,
So-
go ahead. Well,
so-
let Mouthy finish what he was
Yeah.
saying, and then you can go.
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, like, I don't understand if there's just some like fundamental lack of understanding or like an incredible degree of intellectual dishonesty here, because you can't go on this like tirade about how immigration is like, or you're talking about immigration and you're using all these arguments about how immigration is leading to these no-go zones and immigrants are keeping people out. You use this in the context of an argument about the pros and cons of immigration. And then when pressed to provide some evidence that immigration is actually causing the problem, that you're talking about how everyone knows about this problem, then you
I
just
just
say,
sent
oh,
you a
well,
study.
I wasn't actually
I just sent you a
saying that
study right here. It says
immigration
58% based on 33% of the population. 58% of those suspect for total crime on reasonable grounds are migrants. 58%, man.
I'm gonna need a minute. Yeah. Okay.
The crime rates
So,
did go up.
if you
Wait,
They did go up.
everybody, let's
I
let
just
Mouthy finish.
provided the
Yeah,
proof.
Okay, guys,
I'm not going to let you
guys.
go on saying
So-
that I'm making things
all
up
right,
without
so-
evidence when I just provided you with evidence, man.
Sorry, what was your evidence?
58% of those suspects for total
All
crime
right.
on reasonable grounds are migrants. They are not 8% of the population. Man,
Sorry,
they're
what?
way less than that, and they're committing disproportionate amounts of crime due to the study which I just linked you. So
And
no,
guess
I'm
what?
not going to let you keep going on saying that I'm providing things, making assertions without evidence when it's sitting there in chat. No.
And guess
You-
what? The crime rates did go up. The overall crime rates.
So do you not think
And they
it might
spiked
be
as well, along with immigration. So
So okay, so do you not think Never mind, Mouthy. You can.
Here's the
take
last.
this
Here's
one
the
if you
last
want to.
question.
Why
I'll
is
add
Mouthy
Why
something
would
at
they
the end if I
stop
want to.
tracking racial crime statistics? Why?
Wait, Mouthy, why are you on here twice? What's happening?
Hey, what's happening? I'm so confused.
Oh, I can't handle two
Wait.
of them.
That's his evil right-wing twin here to
Wait,
give
Mouthy, are you
Mio
able to
some
talk right now?
quarterbacking.
Hold on,
It'll
everybody
help.
quiet. Everybody quiet. Okay, Mouthy, are you able to talk right now? No. Now?
It seems
What's
to me like you
happening?
guys are again either lying on purpose or just completely ignorant about this topic. Because again, due to the study, which I finally found and linked to you, says that 58% of those suspect for total crime on reasonable grounds are migrants. They are not the 58% of the population, which means they're committing disproportionate crime. That's more than half of the crime, dude. So like what? I don't know what to tell you at this point. You just went on this whole tirade about how I'm making assertions for no reason, with no evidence. There it fucking is.
What's happening here? Why is Mouthy? Why are you? Why are there two of you?
Yeah.
Which one is right? Okay, so
Wait,
this
They're
one.
multiplying.
Can
Oh,
anyone
no.
hear me right now?
What's
Yeah,
going
you're
on?
coming
Yeah.
through. You're coming through. Okay.
Why
Okay,
do we have
wait.
two
So
of you?
sorry, I'm a
So
bit
here's
lost
the
on what's
thing.
going on. So did Maya like actually finally find some evidence on his Google search?
Yeah.
Yeah,
to,
but
like,
20 minutes later.
I found more evidence.
It doesn't matter how much later it is,
So
man. The
robbery,
fact is
rape,
true, and now
sex
you look like
crime,
an idiot for what you've been saying this entire time.
Well, no,
They
I
are
mean,
not
the whole
58% of the
time- the whole
population.
time-
They're going to account for 58%
the whole
of those
time-
suspect for total
For
crime
the
on
whole
reasonable
time, I've
grounds.
just been asking you for some evidence for
Yeah,
your claim, and for
like,
about half an
it-
hour you haven't
These
been
are
able
things
to
which
provide
people
any
have
like-
known for years,
If you
man.
haven't
I didn't
found
think that
some,
we'd have
that's
to jump
cool.
into
I'll
studies.
Like
over that.
at
It's
the start,
mainstream
me and
knowledge.
all me and Mouthy have ever done is ask you for evidence. It doesn't make you a genius that you set a claim out of nowhere with no reason to believe it, and then after you Googled for 20 minutes, you found one link that backs it up.
Do you want to know something funny?
What?
It speaks to how correct my worldview is that I was able to discern this without the study because it shows that there are obvious differences in who commits crime. There are obvious differences in culture between the ethnicities of people, between the people who are historic Swedes and the people who are the immigrants. Now, Mouthy, you said there are no spikes in the crime rates either. There obviously are spikes according to this. So
Well, no,
that was
so my
a
claim-
Since the
fucking lie
90s,
too, as
there's been
So my
there's been
claim
an
was-
increase in
So my
robberies. There's
claim
been an
was that
increase in
there's
rapes.
higher crime in Sweden currently than there was in 1990.
There
Okay,
is.
but there were
There
spikes
is.
along
Oh
with
my
the waves of
God.
immigrants.
So
Sorry, Brittany.
It's okay.
Yeah.
There
Right,
is. There
Brittany,
is
do
an
you-
increase in crimes since the 90s.
Brittany, do you want us to like do you want us to like wrap up soon, or like how much more time do we have?
Probably.
This is what I've been trying to say. There is an increase in crimes.
What are you saying, Alt?
There is an increase in crimes since the 90s in Sweden.
It's
No,
the 90s.
There is.
crime
I'm
is
looking at it
currently
right now.
higher than
There's
it
an
was
increase
in
in rape. There's an
1990.
increase in robberies.
Sorry, what?
An increase in there's an increase in robberies, an increase in rapes, an
Since-
increase in sex crime. So
Yeah,
since the
so-
90s.
Oh yeah, Brittany, can you link this in the general chat? This study he put from Wikipedia. It's got a great infograph right there. Can you screen share it at least?
Yeah.
Show that these people have been lying this entire time.
Yeah, hold on one second. There's some really loud echo. Hold on. I think maybe if I do it like this,
Uh-oh. Is
maybe it'll go away. No, it might be. Nope. Now, okay. I'm gonna start muting people and see. Testing.
I'm
Hello.
hearing the
Hello.
echo too. So
Hello. Okay, it was all. All right. So I'm muted all. Okay. What am I linking in general?
so this Wikipedia link
Okay.
which he just shared. Is there a way that you could screenshot that or screen share
Screen
that
share?
real quick over all of us? Because it's absolutely proof that both of them have been lying this entire time about the crime
I
rate
haven't
decreasing
lied
since the
about
1990s.
anything.
Okay, so then Mouthy has been lying.
All I did was ask
Okay,
you for
that's fair.
evidence
That's
of your
fair.
claims.
That's
and
fair.
it took you
If you
half
You
an
know
hour
what?
to bring it
I'll
to me.
put it this way. Finley was asking questions, and that's fair. Mouthy has been making claims. No, not that one. The Wikipedia, which here I'll relink the info, just the infograph right here.
So
There it is. The
specifically, I was
newest
just
link.
reading
The newest link. Now everyone can
I was
see
just
right
reading-
now that
Yeah.
Mouthy has been lying for the past 20 minutes about crime rates decreasing since the 1990s in Sweden. This was all an outright lie, and he's been saying it and misleading everyone in this entire debate for the entire time in order to score some cheap points in a debate. And meanwhile, these represent real people who are being hurt, real harm which is being done to real humans. And I find it outright disgusting and despicable that you would do something that make things up like that in order to score cheap political points in a debate. It's absolutely.
Sure. So I was just
And it correlates with immigration.
So I was actually just reading an article from National Review, and basically what it says here is that after Donald Trump made a claim about Swedish crime rates, the Swedish government responded by pointing out that the homicide rate in Sweden is now lower than in 1990. So I mean, yeah, that's all I was reading from. I don't know if you have like some other study which contradicts my claim, then that's
the homicide rate.
Everyone in this whole debate just saw the chart, man. So you can say whatever you want, but everyone can see you now.
If you have a claim, if you have a study that contradicts my claim, that's fine. I was just reading from the National Review because I was looking up evidence for your claim because you couldn't provide me any.
The homicide rates are still
it
low.
doesn't. You don't get points for making a claim up and then Googling evidence later, and the evidence happens
that
to
actually
confirm
just
that you were
proves
correct.
that his worldview is right.
Yeah, I think we can all move on from this crime rate discussion, which we've gotten into the weeds on, which we've now had Dragon forever vindicated on these issues. Do we want to move to Q&A, or is it too late, or what? I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, oh my god. Okay, so
Dragon, I'm just curious, how much money would I have to pay to get you to take an epistemology class?
Epistemology. I took philosophy and ethics and epistemology both, and epistemology was a huge portion of the philosophy class.
Sure. So what would Robert Nozick say about someone who claims that they have knowledge because they make it with a claim without any sort of grounds, and reality just happens to confirm what they thought?
Here's the thing. If what would Robert Nozick say about me making the claim that the sky is blue without providing a study for it? To me, this is stuff that people have known for years. This has been going on for years and years and years, and it just speaks to ignorance that you guys are here on a political debate, especially making arguments from authority about things that which you know nothing about, and trying to call me out about it when these things are
you're the one
obvious
making active claims.
Everyone knows.
Yeah, trying to see if you could provide any evidence for them. You finally did.
All right. Well, the evidence has been provided. Cool. Now we're all good. So there it is. Are we moving to Q&A, or are we sticking on the crime rate discussion?
I mean, we can move on. I'm just trying to look over what you sent.
So Kel says, why is it that in our last election they didn't speak German, French, or any other non-English language, which I'm sure people speak? Instead, they spoke Spanish, which just happens to be the illegals.
This is fascinating. This is probably crazy, and I don't even know if you're prepared to hear this, but it's probably because there are a lot of people in America who speak Spanish. That would be my.
I
that would just be my.
English. I thought we all spoke English, and it was only 2% of people which spoke Spanish in the households.
So, do you remember what I said earlier when we talked about this? And I said, what do you think of when I say 90% speak English? What do you assume the other 10% speak? Not English? Do you think
good. Good. So you skew the statistics one way, or you say it one way in order to make it one point, and then say the statistics the other way when the point turns against you.
I've said them the same way every single time. I don't.
Well, it's 90% one time, and then 10% of the population only speaks Spanish, so we have to
10%
of
Spanish. 10% of the immigrant population only speaks Spanish,
and so now we have to have Spanish in our
not only 10% of the immigrant
in our advertisements, in the media, in the news. We don't
have it in any of those places.
They were absolutely
people spoke Spanish.
Presidential elections. Yes, they were. Anybody can go back and see that that's a lie as well.
Less than 0.1% of the total words spoken over the course of the debate were in Spanish. It constituted
you know what
4
percentage
sentences.
Should have been in an English-speaking country? 0.
You got me, dude.
All right, Jack the Hat says, how will globalists convince Muslims and other conservative religions, cultures to embrace liberalism and gay rights?
Great point.
Funnily enough, we don't actually need to, because conservatives are so racist that they'll keep voting for Democrats and left-wing government, even though they may oppose gay rights. So I think it's actually a pretty big dub for us.
There it is. It's all racism. Racism is the only reason why everyone votes this way. Why all the immigrants vote against conservatives. And
I'm not the guy who de facto assumed that all immigrants commit crime, even though I had no evidence to believe it.
No, now the evidence has been provided, and there were no assumptions made. No one ever said all immigrants commit crime. Miscategorization, lie.
If you didn't make an assumption, then why did you need to spend so much time?
It's because these are things which I have known for years. I don't need to read a study myself again to know something which I already know. That doesn't make it an assumption.
All the things that I know, you could ask me for a source, and I could point you to one in the space of about like 3 minutes at most.
I'm not as good at multitasking as you, and I'm not on ADD meds. So for me, I'd rather engage in the discussion than spend this entire time on Google.
Mio, I literally spent part of my time in school in special education. I don't have some special brain juices that you don't have. I just have sources that back up my claims. Some people are better at multitasking. I just don't randomly say things. I don't have all these studies saved
on my computer. It would take Google searches to find this stuff. And then for the sake of the show, I'm not going to spend the entire time reading pages on Google and looking for studies, a specific part of a specific page for an obvious claim, which everyone should know at this point because the information has been out for years.
So if you're going onto a show where you're going to debate on a topic, why would you not want to have sources for the claims about the topic?
Kind of a far cry from Swedish crime rates.
Yeah,
so then why with that specific number? We could have gone into
then why did you bring it up?
Because again, these are statistics which I have known for years, which it's not making an assumption. I never said all immigrants do anything, and it's a miscategorization and a lie. Next question.
So, all right. So from Elronder, Finley, in which country you integrate better based on your values? China, Ireland, Saudi Arabia, or Nigeria? Why do you think it is different when those people move to America?
I don't know, but I think that I would integrate into all of those places, or most of those places, I guess, probably significantly better than I would integrate into like deep red areas in Texas or Arkansas.
Okay. So from Sussy Baka, did I do something wrong?
No, it's just the name.
The name.
Okay.
What's wrong with the name?
I don't know. It's probably some meme or something.
It's another way of saying Finley. Is a kind of a Sussy Baka.
Okay, I don't know what it is.
Not kinda.
I guess this is just like an anime avatar thing that I just won't understand.
Are you okay with letting globalism finalize its logical endpoint and letting all national identity die? Will the world be better when we all share the same culture everywhere?
Imagine all.
I don't know. I'm actually sad that we didn't end up getting to like the EU or the UN because there's a lot of boogeyman stuff about these organizations that doesn't really make much sense. I guess we could like talk about that after the stream is over.
All right. So I did manage to catch this from Brandito Max. You do have to tag politically provoked if you want me to see your question, though. All right. So what's your for Mio? God damn it! You got me stuck on this. I hate you. For Mio. So what's your plan for non-white people in America? Would you remove them?
What an absurd, ridiculous question. I wouldn't remove anybody from America. Of course not. We're talking about not bringing in more people as policy from other places which are not America. It's that simple.
The lady doth protest too much.
All right, from Base Homeschool Mom, question for Mio. How do you crush these kids so hard for 3 hours straight? You deserve a standing ovation.
Oh, thanks, Fed Mom. It's been tough.
Let's see, what do we got here from Socialist Youth? Why do nationalists believe that most advanced civilizations in history have been multicultural?
I don't think that that's the claim that Alt Info made at all. I think he was talking about specific multicultural civilizations like Rome, which ended up failing after taking on those policies.
Like what policies?
like bringing in people from other ethnic groups and other places and making them Roman citizens.
But which ethnic groups? Like what were the ethnic groups that caused
The Gauls. Didn't they have a Visigoth emperor, and that was like a big part of the decline?
Do you mean the Gauls or the Visigoths? Because the
No,
Visigoth
both. I'm talking about both. Those are different ethnic groups, which were not Romans. Were not
the Visigoth raiders who were ransacking the Roman Empire weren't Roman citizens, though.
That's what I'm talking about. They ended up having a Visigoth like emperor or something, and it's that was like a late stage multiculturalism, which obviously didn't work out for them too well. So
wait, which
I don't recall.
All right, let's move on.
You win on the Visigoth question.
None of them
really
were
quickly,
Visigoths.
can I interject with something that's like kind of apropos, I guess? I was looking into the Swedish crime thing. Basically, the study that you cited seems relatively correct, but what it doesn't note is that if you actually the crime patterns of first-generation immigrants seem generally higher. However, if you look at the offending pattern of second-generation immigrants, it's actually similar to the pattern of native Swedish people. So this doesn't actually seem like very good.
Okay, so we could agree on a policy of stop bringing in more first-generation immigrants, right?
How would you bring in a second-generation immigrant?
That's a good point. How about just no more immigrants? Whoever's there can stay.
Again, that prescriptive claim wouldn't actually follow from the data that you cited, because the data that you cited doesn't say anything about the cause, right? So, and actually,
it doesn't matter the cause. Just looking at the rates, let's just say stop bringing in immigrants to protect the children and the little girls from rape.
Really quickly, so I know you don't want me to talk about this, but I was reading your study, and they specifically pointed out. So you said like, oh, I don't have to read studies. This is why it might actually be a good idea to do that. Because if you'd read your own study, you would know that it specifically said that it wasn't making any claims about causality, and specifically referenced the idea that what's driving these crime rates among immigrants in Sweden might actually be factors related to socioeconomic status.
Oh, don't tell me it's because the little Swedish girls are being racist, man.
What? No, that's not what anybody's saying.
The immigrants, they're being racist against the immigrants, so they're raping little girls. Is that the claim now? And this study is from 2005. How many generations have we gotten, man, in that study?
Wait, what?
This study's from 2005. How many generations are in the study?
What are you talking about? I don't know. Like, maybe you would know if you'd read your own study. Why are you asking me to answer questions about the study?
I'm just saying. The point is, it doesn't matter what the cause is. Immigrants are committing vastly disproportionate crime. Maybe it does matter, okay? But what matters more is that immigrants are committing vastly disproportionate crime, first-generation immigrants, and therefore we should stop taking them in order to protect the little girls. Are you not interested in protecting little girls, Mouthy? Yes or no?
The problem is that if you're not actually assessing the causes,
of course you wouldn't answer a question about protecting little girls just straight yes or no. So I'll tell you, I have an answer. Yes, you should protect little girls.
Wait, he just said yes.
Really quickly. So I am. I know you guys will be surprised that I'm coming out and taking this position publicly, but I do not like it when little girls get raped. However, the problem is when you're trying to talk about statistics, it's really important to know what the cause is of the statistics that you're referencing. Because if you don't actually have an accurate understanding of what's causing these crime rates, then you're not going to be able to come up with what the best possible solution is for the problem.
The best possible solution is stop taking in the people who we don't need to take in, who are committing crimes.
That you would need to provide an additional argument for, because the study that you cited itself says that you can't actually make a prescriptive claim like that just based on the facts contained within that study.
I actually can, and here's why. If the first-generation immigrants weren't here, they wouldn't be committing crimes against little Swedish girls.
But the study you cited doesn't say that the people committing the crime are all of these immigrants.
No, the study says that immigrants are committing a vastly disproportionate amount of the crime, and so therefore you can make a prescriptive claim off of that if they were not here, they would not be doing that. Yes or no?
Sure, but that it doesn't follow from that.
Okay, good. So that's my policy prescription, given no other data.
Well, the problem is it doesn't actually follow from that the only way to stop rape from happening or the only way to lower these crime rates is through stopping immigration.
Yeah.
Because
Like
if the cause is something else, like social economic status or something like this, you can retain all of the benefits of immigration while also changing policy or changing how you're dealing with immigration. Or I don't know where you're.
I don't know why. I don't know why we need a study to see that Muslim rape gangs are bad for little Swedish girls.
There's actually,
right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things.
Did crime go up with immigration? Yes or no?
For example, you could stop taking in like male immigrants, or you could make it so you only take in older immigrants. All of these would also massively reduce crime without having us needing to only stop taking in immigrants completely as a whole. There's a ton of different.
Why is the default that they're taking in immigrants and we need a reason not to? How about there is no immigration?
Because I think we get a lot of benefits.
You'd have
from
to give me a reason
It seems
why
to
it's
benefit
necessary.
Economic productivity. It seems to benefit innovation. There's a lot of benefits.
Right. We should completely give up national identity and social cohesion just for the sake of the economy.
Well, your claims about social cohesion were just empirically incorrect, right?
Same with national identity.
Social cohesion, does social cohesion not involve the well-being of little Swedish girls and how they need to be protected from Muslim rape gangs?
I know that you don't.
This is exactly you sound like Destiny right now, man. It's
sure. So I know that you don't actually have a good grasp on statistics, but the thing is, measures of
I have a
social
good grasp
cohesion,
on the statistics of the crime rates of Muslim immigrants.
That's cool. Yes,
or of immigrants in
little
Sweden.
girls being raped. We know. All right. So the problem
it doesn't seem like it's that big of a problem to you, but to me, that's something which makes my blood boil.
So all right, cool.
Okay,
so,
keep virtue signaling.
So actually, social cohesion.
Sure. I will signal the virtue.
Are you actually talk or? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mouthy. Finish what you're gonna say.
So actually, social cohesion and crime rates are two entirely different statistics that people analyze. These are just not the same thing. I don't know why this is the hill that you think you want to die on. But yeah, there's no actual evidence that immigration is decreasing social cohesion. You've provided evidence that immigrants commit disproportionate amounts of crime compared to the native population. But as the study that you reference says, because you hadn't read it, you can't actually make the prescriptive claim that therefore the best way to stop these crime rates is to stop allowing in all immigrants.
So question. Yeah. Do you think that there is a positive or negative correlation between social cohesion and crime? It's a simple question.
I'm agnostic. I haven't seen statistics. Probably positive.
Of course, we don't have brains here. Of course, we can't use logic and reason for literally anything at all. I'll give you one. There's a positive correlation. There is a negative correlation between social cohesion and crime. As social cohesion goes down, crime goes up. That logically makes sense in my brain because I live in the real world, and I don't
even granting that, it doesn't follow that anything which increases crime will also decrease social cohesion. That's just not how statistics work. You seem to have a very simplistic understanding of these things.
Sure. If you think that a high crime rate area has great social cohesion, I don't know what to tell you, man. We don't have studies to tell you that the sky is blue, bro.
Immigration and diversity and social cohesion. We're not just specifically looking at one country. You found that in one country, immigrants commit disproportionate amounts of crime, right? But that's not nearly enough to establish.
That was one example. I could name any country who has all these issues.
It also doesn't establish that across countries there's a generalized impact that when immigration goes up, crime also goes up, right? Like you can't generalize out the experiences of one country taking in one group of immigrants.
Not generalizing. That was just the one example I gave. We could do this all night with dozens of countries. I also gave an example of the UK of Muslim rape gangs there, which are going largely ignored.
Through this, but if you give one example and you're trying to make a broader point, that is a generalization, right?
We could have gotten into a lot more examples if we didn't spend so long lying about the crime rates in Sweden going up or down. I should have a statistic that says the sky is blue and everything else under the sun. I get it. I'm sorry, I know we have more questions.
Outside and see that the sky is blue. I can't really look outside and see statistics about immigration and crime in Sweden plastered into the sky. I'm not sure what this comparison is. The problem is we're trying to make
You
You're
just
trying
shouldn't
to
be
make
lying about the
bold-
crime
you're
rates or
trying to
making
make-
up what's
you're
going
trying-
up or
so
down,
you're
and
trying
then
to
this
make-
would have
well,
been
no,
all a lot
I
easier.
already cited the article that I was referencing. The problem is, it's funny that you would accuse me of lying when you've been throughout this entire debate making very bold empirical claims, and then only like 30 minutes later, after Google searching, were you able to find anything that would even like claim? And then if you actually read it, it actually
That would
did
even
support
claim?
the
You mean
point.
that proved exactly what I said?
Well, no, because the authors specifically said that they couldn't assess causality in a way that would allow you to make the prescriptive claims that you were trying to make based on that study. So even that study didn't prove your point. But I mean, I will give you credit that at least after half an hour, you found a study that almost looked like it proved your point if you don't read it. I mean, that was cool, I guess. It was a step up from how you're performing earlier.
We all admire that you did your best here.
Okay, so anyways, from Justin, would you support base? I feel like this is going to be a troll question, isn't this? I think it is it? I'm going to just move on. All right, so from Unrelated Coma, to Finley, do you think not getting to the UN and the EU had something to do with you? Oh, come on, you guys. Like, fucking A. Just gonna move on. We'll just skip that part. Demanding studies for everything Mia said and engage. No, yeah, that was bad. Okay, let's see.
Demanding studies to demonstrate empirical claims that were made. Debate bro tactics.
Wait, are you telling me you want
Yeah, it
evidence?
turns out
before you
that
think
what I said
things?
was exactly correct. And
Well,
again,
it
it's the
wasn't,
idea
but-
that I would need to
Yeah.
come here with thousands of studies for literally
So-
everything that
I
exists
mean,
under the
so-
sun. You'll never get anybody on the show
You
ever
don't have
again,
to
man.
you don't have to bring studies for everything.
How was
don't
I
make
supposed
a
to know?
claim
We
about
get into
something.
the crime rates in Sweden.
You didn't have
It's
to know.
something
Just
we
don't make a
the
claim.
conversation
just
naturally
don't make an
progressed to.
empirical
No,
claim if you
I'm
don't
not
have
going to
empirical
avoid making
evidence.
true claims about true facts, which are necessary in order to protect little Swedish girls, man.
Well,
Because someone
but-
needs to talk about these things. Someone needs to talk about it.
The problem is that you could have if you think someone needs to talk about it, then you could have brought it up in a situation where you wouldn't have made the
I think
claim
someone
look
needs to talk
so
about
bad
this and
by spending
thousands of
10
other
minutes.
issues which
but-
globalism is doing to ruin sovereign nations.
But again,
Are we gonna-
here's the problem is that again,
Poor
you
Brittany.
specifically chose to bring it up, knowing that you had no proof that it was true. This
No,
was a
I did
topic
have
that
proof,
you
and I
brought
brought
up.
the proof, and now
Well,
I'm
you
vindicated
didn't. I mean,
by
even
the
that
proof.
study like specifically threw in caveats, which would not allow, which like makes it very clear that they were saying that you can't make the claims that you're trying to make based on that study, right? Even that
I
study
don't
didn't
care about
support what you were
anyone
saying.
with a brain can tell that people who are committing crimes here who shouldn't be here, if they weren't here, they wouldn't be committing crimes here. You don't need a study for that, man.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
Let's
Again,
move
if-
on.
and-
Let's
Yeah,
move
so
on for
from-
Brittany's sake.
And
Let's
if
move
we
on for
sterilize,
Brittany's sake.
No,
and if
Please,
we
guys.
sterilized
Guys,
everyone,
for
my
Brittany.
dead uncle would still
Okay.
be alive.
Please, for Brittany.
So from Brandito Max to Mio, how would you fill in the labor gap without immigrants in America?
How would I fill in the labor gap? Yeah, I don't necessarily agree that there is a labor gap necessarily. You know, we had enough labor before the immigrants got here, and the wages are again, I think the wages would probably rise without the immigrants coming here. So
Based on
I don't
what?
know. Based on my brain, man. It's,
Okay, wait,
I-
what?
it's-
okay,
so
wait,
this
but-
idea
but
that there's a
actually-
labor gap.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Let me
This
finish.
idea
This is the
that
question.
there's right. The idea that there's a labor gap, that every single country in the world needs to take in immigrants from other places or else their economy dies is absolutely absurd. Because guess what? All the other nations are not bringing immigrants in. They're removing people, and it's like there wouldn't be enough people in the entire world for every nation to take people from everywhere in order to bolster their economies. And the American,
what nations are removing people?
the ones sending people here, are they taking in immigrants from other places?
Okay, so they're not removing people.
Well,
They're just
not
having
removing,
them
but
leave.
they're
Wait, so
people are leaving is what. Yeah, right,
You know,
right.
There's for example, there's places like Japan with like falling birth rates and massive labor shortages.
Yeah,
There's
the
places like
birth rates
Romania.
are the problem. You're right. The birth
so
rates
really
are exactly
quickly,
the
so you
problem.
made a
If we
claim
increase
that-
the birth rates, that would solve the issue. There's
you
my
made a-
answer to the labor gap. Thank you, Finley.
Really quickly, so you made a claim that immigration going away would increase wages, and I mean, obviously, you don't have a source for that. But
Oh, God.
what logical
It's a Q&A. It's a Q&A, man.
I'm just curious.
What-
Wait, yes. So I'm
Okay, my
asking a
answer to
question.
every question from now on is I didn't bring a study. Sorry.
I'm not asking for
Chattered,
a
you might
study.
as well
No,
not ask.
yeah.
Wait, I'm not asking for a study. I'm just asking for a logical inference that leads you to that conclusion.
The supply and demand curve of labor versus wages.
Right. So
labor versus
immigrants
jobs.
increase labor supply, but you understand they also increase labor demand, right? Because they consume things.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay. So how does so how does that so how does appealing to supply curves support your
Okay.
point?
Okay. You win the supply curve argument. I'll give you that. It's. Let's move on. I would say that to solve the labor shortage, I would increase the birth rates.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
gonna
go.
do one last question, and then we're gonna just do final thoughts, and we're gonna close it down. All right. So from El Rondo to the globalist panel, how diverse is the area you are living in? If it is over 50% white, I suggest you practice what you, I'm guessing you meant preach, and move to your utopia. I don't know if that was a real question either.
No, it's a very good point. It's there are a lot of people who live in majority white areas and are very happy in their gated communities and stuff. Who they should be moving to these demographically multicultural areas that they want in their utopian world.
Well, good thing I live in Vancouver then.
What's that? What is
No
that?
one here knows.
About Canada.
All
It's
my
very diverse.
Canadian moment.
yeah, that's the component on that.
It's a major country. It's a major city in Canada that's minority white.
Cool.
It's one of the most diverse major cities in North America.
How about you, Mouthy?
It's a nice place.
What did you say? Do I live in Vancouver?
No. Yeah. What are the demographics like in your area? Is it diverse enough?
It's pretty diverse.
Okay.
I think Mouthy is actually the only white man, and they're trying to run him out of town. Actually, it's pretty fucked up.
the remaining white man.
All right, so I think that is let me say all the Asians though.
It's all Asian,
okay.
which don't commit crimes.
God, I'm getting loopy. All right, so let's do some let's do final thoughts. All right, Mouthy, why don't you go first?
Okay. This is fun. I guess we talked about too much for me to have any sort of coherent summary of everything that we've talked about. But I guess, Mayo, if you, in a few years, if you ever find a study that actually supports your claim, feel free to DM me.
Deal.
Deal.
Don't wait up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he would. I don't think he had any intention of. But this was a fun, funky, fresh one. I wish that we'd gotten to talk about the UN or the EU or economic stuff, but I think that we probably didn't because both guys here recognize that there's no real argument against any of these things. And if there was, it would probably be appealing to conspiracy theories and ideas that like every rich man on earth is colluding with Michelle Goldberg and the CEO of Walmart to get us to all like start eating soy and bugs and renting
last minute
There's the guy who eats soy and bugs.
We got a last minute.
And I rent my bicycle too. It's pretty fucked up.
Wait, sorry, Kyle just popped in really quick, and he has to say hi. So hi, Kyle.
What's up? How you doing, everybody?
Kyle's been watching this.
How are you, Kyle Frank?
Doing all right. Just wanted to hop in here. Said it was enjoyable. I think I had fun. Wasn't really thinking that hard, but I think it was fun.
That's good to hear. I'm
So,
glad
yeah.
I'm glad we were able to satisfactorily occupy your evening.
Yeah, thanks. I was playing
Long as
Minecraft
it's
in the
good
background. Was watching some other stuff. Trying not to wake up my brother.
Yes,
No
you
one's
can
doing
see
right
us talking
now.
really quietly.
So yeah, having a good night. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Oh, just dandy.
I had less of a headache when we started, but other than that,
I think we
Yep,
can all
you got-
agree on that.
You got some aspirin?
not enough, man. Not enough.
Oof.
All right, so yeah, finish your final thoughts. Finally.
I don't know what I was saying. Oh yeah, I think that a lot of the things that we went over here were silly. I think that a lot of these arguments don't really make a lot of sense. I'll you know what? I'll give Mio credit. I'll mea culpa. There is a study out there that seems like it proves its point if you don't read it, which obviously I assume he didn't because he had to frantically Google it so he didn't look silly on a panel in front of 100 people. Other than that, I don't think a lot of the vaccine passport stuff makes a lot of sense. We didn't even get into Juneteenth, but I think
know, right?
to celebrate that. And even after all of that, I still have no fucking clue what globalism means. So I would say it was a massive victory for everyone involved.
Oh man. Okay. Alt.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we didn't go through. Like there's a lot of points I wanted to make, but overall it was a fun debate. I enjoyed it.
I'm always in the group chat.
But I mean, I didn't talk much. I know because I'm not a very talkative person.
It's okay.
Closing statement,
Mio,
bro. That was the only
You did
statement.
good.
Mio held the fort down.
Yeah, the points you made were good, man. Really.
Hey, thanks, man.
Mio.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, I'll say that after 20 minutes, a half hour of erroneous. I won't call it lies. I'll say it erroneous. Erroneous assertions, things that are wrong that were made about the Swedish crime statistics after being, given the runaround about all of these issues for way too long. We finally had Mio vindicated, and it's all. We see that the crime rates have gone up along with immigration. We see crime spikes along with immigration. And we can obviously deduce from this, without any studies, that if the immigrants weren't coming here, that issue would not be happening. And so, we see this all over the world. We see these same things in Britain. We see these crimes happening. We see that the police are ignoring them because they don't want to be racist. We see these institutions that are no longer tracking racial crime statistics because they don't want to seem racist. And then now we have it trickles down to debates like these, where now you can't even make the claims about things which are obviously true because we don't have the statistics about racial crime statistics, because people like Mouthy will call people racist if they even track it. And so we have, that we have
when
that.
did I do this?
We have the. I didn't talk during your closing statement.
I gotcha.
Now, on top of that, we have the idea of nationalism, a nation of people retaining sovereign control over their nation, not voluntarily subverting themselves and becoming a vulnerable minority to other ethnic groups which have obvious racial grievances against them, be it colonization or whatever. And so bringing in more people from the world, globally, is obviously not going to make that better. And so I think that I agree with Finley that I wish we could have gotten into the EU, the UN, these sort of global organizations, and non-governmental organizations as well, which are subverting sovereign nations. On top of that, I think that we could have much better discussions if we weren't so laser focused on studies about things which are obvious and everyone knows.
Gotcha.
And I know. Oh God, there's that fucking. I'm gonna have to mute you, Alt. I know Kyle wasn't here. Kyle you're a groiper too, right, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm racist. I'm not racist. That's a joke. That's a joke.
So I know you weren't here, but what did you think from what you saw?
That was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I wanted to talk to Mayo after the stream ended because I had some comments, but sure, yeah,
Cool.
Mouthy Infidel, good as always.
Cool.
Finley,
I
decent.
appreciate
This is the first thing I saw you.
I always aim for decent, so
Mediocre.
Solid effort. Alt, your closing statement was your only statement. So I mean, good job.
Pretty much.
And Maya, you did a good job. Good job.
Thanks,
everybody.
man. I appreciate that.
All right, so
It's-
we're gonna
it's-
close.
sometimes we're rougher than others, I'll admit. Yeah, these guys are tough and they make good points.
It's pretty
Yes.
much 2 versus 1.
Yeah, so we are okay. So we're gonna close it down. We have a debate tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Big Papa Fascist will be debating on race and gender. Sunday, Mrs. Papa Fascist will be debating at 9 p.m. Eastern. Witchcraft and feminism. So make sure to come check that out.
Oh, by the way, let me know if anyone wants to debate what this really all comes down to, which is the Jewish question.
Right?
Me and Brittany were talking about that earlier.
So what we were thinking, Mouthy, is possibly doing that debate and recording
You can't have
it.
that on YouTube.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
and
you're
recording it, and
You'll
recording
get
it,
deplatformed.
and then see how it goes, and decide later if we're going to air it, because
Okay. Yeah,
these
sounds
guys are
good.
scaring me. Okay, so, all right, so yeah, good night, guys, and we will see you tomorrow night, and stick around. Whatever. Good night.